Hello?
Oh, yeah, I got you. Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully, we won't
Uh,
have this whole thing again.
yeah. No, it's okay. I mean,
Well, I
I'm
completely shut down Steam, so hopefully, we won't have that again.
well, I'm still hoping I don't get disconnected because, because of various things, the Wi-Fi, is what it is, and I can't log into Starbucks' Wi-Fi. I haven't been able to for months, so I can't get stable internet that way, and
Right.
that's kind of crappy because that's how I was getting it, and so now I'm, you know, um,
Hey, Psycho Fire, welcome to the channel. It's not often that I do this, but when I do, it gets pretty wild with all conspiracies and stuff. Glad you make
um,
it to the stream. But yeah, before we continue, I just wanted to apologize. That was completely my fault. The previous stream ended. Apparently, Steam wanted to herp when it should have derped and started downloading a lot of stuff, ganking up a lot of bandwidth. So that is totally my fault. I own it. My mistake.
Well, see, like, okay, you just brought up an interesting thing, right? And I don't think a lot of anarchists look at it this way. I mean, the religious ones do because that's how we were brought up. But the idea of total self ownership gets into the idea of saying, okay, I made a mistake, let me make amends, and then potentially suffer a consequence for that. And I don't hear a lot of anarchists talking about it from that angle of the whole I've got to basically do a pros and cons risk assessment for everything, and I know that gets very tedious, but it's
Well,
one of those.
it gets tedious, but the convenience of the state is it's an inconvenience eventually. Like, so
Yeah,
if people look at it as essentially, I'm going to do this now so that I don't have to deal with a whole bunch of bullshit later. It's a fundamentally different story, especially since the more you manage your current life, the less you have to potentially manage your future. So like if you deal with your shit now, and if you weigh pros and cons now, you won't be audited by the IRS. You won't be spied on by the NSA. You won't have the SWAT raid your house because you smoked a plant. Like there are a huge amount of benefits to essentially doing it for yourself and doing it now that the state would rather people not think about.
Right, and the way that I put it, that I owned the problem because the stream ended prematurely. It's I failed to realize that Steam might do that. I mean, it's all cause and effect at that point. And
yeah.
if I had realized that Steam could have done that, even with the possibility, I should have shut it off before even started. So
Well, but see, this is where I kind of again coming from a religious key kind of background is, you know, sometimes when you're new at something, you fail. And
Well, of
I think
course.
there has to be a quote unquote grace period or like a forgiveness period to say, okay, look,
But you only
you did
really
this completely
fail when you
wrong.
don't get up again.
in my opinion, you only
No,
really
no,
fail if you
I don't
don't
mean it
learn
like that.
from
I don't mean it like that. I
I,
mean it
I,
like, okay,
I was making a joke. I get what you mean.
oh,
it.
yeah, yeah. Because the way I was like, because sometimes, because people learn different rates, you know what I mean? And like I
IQ
know I've
count.
got a hard head, and so sometimes, but there's two parts of this. One, it takes a very patient teacher, which there's not a lot of, if at all, and two, there's not kind of a mentor thing, and this is bothersome because the state has tried to become the mentor, and they've done it for perverse reasons, and they have a perverse outcome. And
Hey, Jacob, welcome to the stream. And Jacob Navo says, "Hi, Gene the Magic Robot."
hola.
So
Just to let you know, I can't see anything you guys post because I'm on the
yeah,
phone.
so
So
I'll try to read chat the best I can. Pretty soon, what I
Well,
want to do is have like questions from whatever audience we have in regards to anarchy.
and make another tweet to talk about how the previous stream crashed, and I'll retweet that and get some people in the chat.
Gotcha. I will do
Yeah.
that now.
Mind if I
link out to
just
KitKat.
can I link this kind of the stream to Discord? Like the Discords I'm in, can I spread out this YouTube link?
I mean, it's already in the. It's already. You don't have my Discord link.
Oh no! I mean, my other Discords that I joined in, that I'm involved in. Like, I just want to spread this link out, so in case if anybody wants to like view the stream, if that makes sense. Sorry.
Well, I don't know why that would be a problem. He wants viewers.
Yeah, okay. I just want to ask because it's just mannerism personally for me.
Yeah, I mean, I posted a link in self-promotion in my Discord, so I mean, you're part there, so.
Okay, I'm gonna spread it to
I don't know
everywhere
how
else.
all that stuff works because of various things that have happened.
Well, Discord's just
only
a
have
chat.
Oh, okay.
It's a server basically. That everyone else has their own servers and their own rules.
Right. And Jacob
Anarchy.
Jacob Navo says, "Did you guys hear what Disney did to Red Robot?" Now I'm interested.
Like our Red Robot or some other Red Robot?
I'm assuming our Red Robot.
No.
Did his brain or no mechanics just went too high and because of what they did?
They
if they're talking about-
appropriated Fembot.
Oh,
Are you serious?
Right, I heard that.
You know what?
Did they really?
Jacob, after the stream, me and you were getting together. You're going to show me exactly what's going on because I am intrigued. But after the stream, we'll get together.
By fembot, one question, Jacob, was it by fembot meaning gender or does it mean by feminist? Because I heard, said.
Okay, so the thing is, Red Robot created, a fembot avatar. What I can come to the conclusion of is that, like, by the means of appropriated, it's basically utilized the avatar, maybe.
Oh boy, we'll see.
Now, see, this gets into a weird kind of fracturable moment with libertarians and anarchists because the whole idea of IP, right? Because most libertarians and anarchists are against IP, but this would be an example of let's say I made something. Do you have permission to use it? Kind of thing, and that leads to some interesting debates. I mean, I'm not of the right mindset right now because I'm hot and sweaty to have that debate. But
what are we talking about?
Your
IP?
size.
Well, I'm saying the idea of okay, because anarchists are all about, or at least not the communist variety, are all about voluntary consent, right? So
it depends on what the voluntary consent is. If I voluntarily consent for my neighbor's tire to be used to replace my other neighbor's tire, that's not the appropriate use of consent. So
right.
I mean, I think we have to get down to some basic principles before we say something like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay. I mean, my point was, let's say I created something. And it was meant to be private, but it somehow escaped, I got on the internet or whatever. Let's say a chick took a selfie, right?
Did somebody hack your computer?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just kind of doing the hypothetical, but yeah, that would
right.
That would take.
Hypothetically, did somebody hack your computer?
Right, and that's the question because there needs to be some type of recourse to regain the autonomy, and you can make the IP argument for that.
Why would you?
Still kind of no.
They broke into your property. That's not IP.
No, I'm
they
saying
didn't
because
steal anything.
I'm saying if a chick took a sexually explicit image.
Well, just for clarification, what is IP?
Intellectual property.
Okay.
Right.
I was thinking differently.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Well, no, but let's say a chick took a kind of a sexually explicit thing, right? And it was on her home computer or some device, right? And somebody else broke in and took it, right? And
broke into what?
Used their device, right?
Well, that's the crime.
No, I realize that, right? But here's the problem. We all know once something's on the internet, it's gone, and that can really damage a person's reputation. And this is what I'm saying about the IP
Okay,
thing.
so on that score, then, do you disagree with Rothbard, who postulated that people don't own their reputation because their reputation is thoughts in other people's minds?
I can go both ways on that.
Well, I can't. I go that route.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, let's say a false reputation has been established. You have to be able to then have some type of recourse to say, no, I didn't do this. Here's my proof that I didn't do X, Y, and Z. Reestablish my reputation.
But the other person wouldn't like have done anything specifically aggressive, and in that sense, the other person would have their reputation destroyed potentially, as a liar and a charlatan, and maybe your reputation would have stronger preserves later because you would be able to say, well, hey, I've been attacked before, this isn't new. Like, that's happened for me before. I've had to defend myself publicly from accusations from all sorts of people, So I mean, realistically, I don't think IP is the argument there, or even that reputation is an argument there, because reputation wars usually end up with the person with the highest level of visible trust winning. So, I mean, I don't know what the thing would be there.
Well, I'm saying I could see it as a justification for IP. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying I see the argument.
I see the argument too, and I also see it flushing down a John. So,
well, like let's take the most recent thing, right? And you and I both kind of had a similar feeling on police to various degrees, right? But
yeah,
is it appropriate for a person to falsely accuse somebody of a crime, right? And then
let's just say one crime, right? Like rape or something.
Right. Well, remember that woman, she accused this cop of rape and all these terrible things, and Sean King tweeted it out and all this stuff, right? But then the cop was like, here's the full camera footage, all 4 hours.
Right.
But in the public's mind, they'll always view him as a dirty, terrible person.
Well, yeah,
so what I mean. He's a cop.
These days.
He is, because he's a cop, of course, but, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm saying I'm just using that as an example that everyone would know about. I mean, you can make the argument about being the cop or whatever, but let's say it was a businessman, right?
Right.
And he was accused of doing something horrendous, right? Rape, child molestation, whatever, something terrible. And they spread this around, and well, let's say it finally got back to him, he's like, well, how come I'm not getting contracts for doing certain things, X, Y, and Z? And it's like, oh, because this person spread this rumor, there has to be some kind of damages because you hurt that person's livelihood, for example. Now, it will never repair. That's the problem. This is why, like, again, coming from a religious point of view, this is why you're not supposed to do rumors, and you're not supposed to lie about people, and you're not supposed to do these things because, yeah, you can hurt them, but you also hurt you. So
well, right.
The double-edged. Yeah.
See, because then they're like, I mean, you just said it in your sentence tacitly. You said supposed. People shouldn't suppose things. They should just check and, test data on their own and not just believe people because of whatever inherent bias they have. It's going to require a lot of reprogramming to even get to anarchy. But realistically speaking, one of the first things that needs to go is people's inherent knee-jerk addiction to like believing something just because it fits their narrative. So, I mean, don't suppose jack shit. Do your own research. And,
we agree on this,
No,
but
and I didn't say that we did. I'm just saying that the solution was in your sentence. Don't suppose shit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But that's a real problem when it comes to certain, especially the higher profile you are, right? The more it can be used against you. But like, here's another kind of thing I think about sometimes too, and it's sort of in regards to IP, right? Right. Let's say I draw up some blueprints, right? Mm-hmm. And I offered them out, but then let's say I did it open source, right? And you then use those blueprints, right? And it caused injury to yourself or to somebody else. Who is the guilty party?
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
mean, if you use the blueprints and you injured somebody with the blueprints, well, with the design that came from the blueprints, you're the person who injured them. I mean, that's not an IP argument. That's an action argument.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
it's
okay, but my point kind of is like, at least like in certain religious viewpoints, right? They will attribute the design flaw, so to speak, on the creator of the blueprint, or and then other groups will assign the flaw of the one who used it. For example, like let's say I said, "Oh, here I made this car," and you go, "Cool, let me buy it," and I you know, it's like, well, you have to be responsible, but then what happens if then the person acts irresponsibly or even responsibly and injures themselves? And
Well,
look,
are we talking about a flaw in manufactured goods? Because that's to me, that's not an IP argument either. That's a fraud argument. That's it, or because like people would ensure that their product is safe, especially if it's something
well, no,
like
I'm
your
talking about
car.
like think of the idea of the 3D printed anything, right? Like I open
Sure.
source, like Cody Wilson, right? I got 3D printed. I designed the plans to make a 3D printed gun, right?
Sure.
I'm of the viewpoint of buyer beware on this kind of scenario. If you decide to use these plans and it blows up in your face, well, you're the one who decided to use these plans. But on the
Yeah,
other
honestly,
side,
yeah, dude. If you're gonna open up a factory in your house, don't be surprised when something goes wrong on the factory
right.
floor.
But on the other side of that is, let's say I do a design, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is how it is at a lot of schools, especially engineering schools. If you design something while you're in school, the school then gets to claim that, and you have no recourse. And that's kind of like one of those, you know, I don't know a way around it other than some type of accountability.
Just release a liability contract, yo. Just have terms and conditions when people download your plan, and include those TOS with the plan. I mean, there's a certain point at which you can't do anything about a potential problem. There's a certain point, like if somebody stripped the TOS out of a file they redistributed, that'd be a different story. But realistically speaking, you can release the initial liability for the plan just by getting people to agree that if this fucks up, you won't fuck us. I mean, realistically.
No, look, and I agree with you, and to some regards, it's that way in the open source world, right? And the open source film world and all that stuff. But I also understand, again, like let's go back to the scenario of like somebody hacked my computer and these plans were unfinished, but somebody took them, and it's got my name plastered all over it, for example. I should not be held liable because I didn't release them. You know what I mean?
You shouldn't be held liable, no, but that's also not an IP argument. If anything, that's an anti-IP argument because it's saying that somebody wouldn't somebody who released information that you didn't want to release because it wasn't finished would be the actual guilty party for anything that happened there anyway. Beyond that, like, if for instance, if you release a torrent, a file that you torrented, and that torrent came with a virus, and you release that virus, you would be then the person who's spreading the virus. The torrent itself, the people who sent out the torrent initially, wouldn't be responsible for anything that the seeders got thrown in there.
I agree with you, and the only reason why I sometimes waver, I can see both sides, is especially from the engineering world, because plans get stolen all the time. And and if I'm still doing if I'm still prototyping, right, and I'll release on my own schedule, but I also know there's international espionage. They, like, people hack servers all the time, and they were like, oh, we got these plans, and then often they will pimp them out as their own stuff, and so when the person who originally released it, this is kind of an anti-IP argument too, but saying like, because the way the IP works is the first person to register the IP is the owner of the IP, which is kind of, it is what it is.
So wrapping up this point, what are we in consensus of?
Well, I don't like IP as a concept, because reasonably speaking, you can't control an idea and you shouldn't control other people's brains. So I mean, functionally, IP doesn't work. Like rhetorically and empirically, it doesn't work. And the only thing it does is serve to let people essentially hoard ideas. And so I don't support it at all. Even though I can see where other people come from, I think they come from bad premises that are based in a long history of statism and resource monopolization.
Here's kind of my different view of, let's say I create something, right, a tool. And I didn't mean it to go out to the general public. Am I really hoarding it? I mean, it's just like
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like when people patent hawk, when people.
Oh no, yeah, I got you.
So there's a difference between not releasing an idea and hoarding ideas that other people made. Like you make a thing, and then your neighbor sees that you made the thing and sees how easy it is, and they patent it and trademark it, and then they're the people who legally own it. This has happened a huge amount of times. It's discouraged a lot of people from getting into STEM to begin with.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of reasons where, especially if you go to university, like I brought up, like engineering.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are this way too. Anything you design while you're at that company becomes private company, and a lot of times you have to sign paperwork to that effect, which sucks because it's like, even if it's not related to the company, like let's say you work at a car company, right? But then you design some kind of piece of I don't know, a new bookshelf or whatever. Technically, they could still take it. Now they might not want it. This is what happened with the whole when Apple came about, because they worked for another company. They had to offer, and when the company turned them down. Dumb move, because Apple's worth billions. But my point is, though, from a creator's point of view, let's say I create something, and whether I want it out in the world or not, I should be able to say, no, I made this, here's my proof that I made this, please stop using this, because this is not only you're using something that I didn't intend, and you're causing harm to other people.
Well, right, but that's not an IP argument. That's a don't use an unfinished product argument.
Well, no, but let's say you're I'm looking at it from a liability standpoint of
right.
Yeah.
So in terms of liability, the liability wouldn't be from an intellectual property standpoint. It would be from a standpoint of making people aware of the dangers of using an unfinished product.
Well, I mean, if it's a finished product, I still think that, like, let's say I create a special tool and I just use it at my farm. But again, the implication is a theft, that somebody would take that tool and then market it, make lots of money. It's one of those, hey.
Well, did they steal your tool?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, the implication is that there's a theft involved, and that's the
So
crime.
they stole your physical object, because that's different than intellectual property. That's just property.
No. I mean, I understand it, but to me, I don't know how much of a difference is, at least in the world that I'm sort of in, of a digital tool is very similar, at least in kind of my view. But I remember, I'm also an advocate of the open source of, like, look, I created this thing, I use it for this. Right. If you want to try to use it and manipulate it, I'm okay with that, but that's me giving it away.
So let me see if I can put it in a situation.
Okay.
Hypothetically speaking, I create a tool, and this tool's specific function is to automatically predict what formulas you're going to use in an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. So, and it automatically predicts this with a 99% accuracy rating. Now, this tool helps corporations that do data entry specifically, so that way they don't have to bust their hands and fingers, inputting all that data manually.
Or more likely, they don't have to hire people from Craigslist. LOL.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the point is, I'm kind of unsure about it. So, I mean, the product is by other standards finished, but I'm not completely fine with it. And so I send it to, say, a friend to test it for me. Right?
Okay. Guys, go ahead. I've been silenced for all this, but I want to bring up my question. But you got something else, Optimus, you want to keep saying?
Well, yeah. So I sent it to my friend to test, and I'm like, hey, look, don't share this with anyone. I don't think it's finished. I need you to test it out, see if it works. Now,
Right.
now somehow that tool gets out, and let's say hypothetically it's because his system was not protected enough to prevent that tool being taken.
Well, I mean, okay, so
Or you
three
have a
things
shitty friend.
three things on this level. First off, your friend should have said yes before you sent the file, just to ensure that your friend was held to some sort of standard there. Second thing is that if your friend has an unsecure system and somebody else breaks into that system, if somebody else breaks into their information storage system, that person would be trampling on their property in a very fundamental and specific way. It's sort of like, if I have the code for your garage door opener and I open your garage door, or if I have the key code for your home's entry door, the fact that I have the information necessary to get in doesn't mean that it would be ethical for me to do so. So in that sort of sense, your friend would be ethically, completely fine, as long as your friend did not intend for their system to be breached. But, to be honest, your friend should add better security if they were going to hold something like that anyway.
Well,
but like beyond that, like, concept, it would be the person who broke in that was the problem, not your friend. And it certainly wouldn't be because of IP in a specific ethical sense that doesn't require legalese. It would be, the problem of the person who violated their property by misusing it, by getting into that property and stealing what they had there in the form of security, but not in the form of ideas. The ideas were intangible and reproducible infinitely. So it's not like they damaged something. They just shouldn't have broken in. That's the fundamental ethical flaw.
Well, the reason why I would say the whole damage thing, right? Because, like my cousin, she's an architect in Europe, or at least was. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a while, right? And over there, they guarantee a building for a minimum of 50 years because of the materials they use, right? But let's say she's at her firm, right? And she's designing something for personal use. But then it gets on the company's thing, and before she could stop it, it gets out and becomes a viable material that the company then makes.
That sounds like a vulnerability your friend should have checked, or your cousin should have checked.
It's there's the argument, kind of the argument I see you're making, and look, I agree with you. It's up to the individual to ensure their own safety in all aspects. That's kind of my view on anarchy too. But I also understand that, let's say a boy and a girl or whatever, people are in a relationship and they're sending nudes to each other or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, then the relationship goes south and one person decides to then be malicious and post this out. We know this happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but that's not a fucking, like, that's not a point for IP though. That's a point for not dating dicks.
Well, okay, fine. My point is, though, it's one of those. Let's say the person who got the girl or whatever, or guy, is some type of, let's say, school teacher or whatever, and it was assumed in their relationship that it was private, but then the other party decided to get revenge, or in a divorce case, or what I'm saying is this gets used, this exact scenario gets used a lot to try to destroy someone's moral character, and it's one of those, irregardless of whether it was a consensual exchange, irregardless whether it was intended to be a private matter, because lawyers love this.
I don't fundamentally understand how that would be like a damage to their character. Their character was damaged as soon as they started sending pics of their genitals. I mean, this is something that they did. If people knowing about it is the problem, I mean, I fundamentally disagree with that. People should know whatever they want to know, as long as they didn't break any like ethical codes to get that knowledge. But like when people when people like transmit information that other people thought was going to be private, but that thought was based on trust and not some sort of agreement, basically what you're saying is that if somebody breaks somebody's trust, that's an argument for IP. It's their cockpick is not their IP. It's just a bad thing to send it because it's a dick move. It's not like their reputation somehow matters more than the argument for or against IP. Their reputation is fundamentally like whatever other people want it to be. It's in other people's minds. It's not theirs to control.
I understand that on one way, but again, all voluntary exchanges have to be based on a certain level of trust.
No, they don't.
You know,
I mean, you can get an agreement signed. You can, I mean, and if you do get your trust broken with this person, whoever they are, then you can expose them as a dick in the community, and they'll probably get their reputation damaged worse than you would. Nobody likes revenge porn, dude. Like barely anybody.
No, I know. I'm just the only reason why I bring up that scenario is because most people can kind of be sympathetic to the actual kind of, I hate to say quote unquote victim,
Well, the target certainly would be a good word.
Yeah, the target. Now, I could see this going a lot of different ways because, again, if a man, like the scenario, kind of what I'm thinking about, it happens a lot. If a man is falsely accused of rape, like with Mattress Girl or whatever, right? And his name was strung to the mud, right? Well, he's essentially fucked, and he has no recourse.
See, but here's the problem with that. I do agree that is a dick move, and I think that she should be fucked at this point. She shouldn't be hired for anything. She should be homeless. She should be living in a ditch. Essentially, she should be made an example of by society in order to prevent sort of these future incidents occurring in a similar and repeatable way. And that's how that problem could actually be solved. How it can't be solved is forcing people to deal with anybody, because that's the sort of environment that creates this sort of thing to begin with. I mean, realistically speaking, what we should do with people like Mattress Girl is make them pariahs and allow society's reputational system to destroy them too. That's what we should do. And until we get a fundamental paradigm shift in the way people interact, that's not going to happen.
I agree with you, but I'm saying,
okay, sorry. I'm just going to say that the idea, Jeremiah, what you're speaking right there is technically social acceptability, right? Basically.
Well, it's sort of social acceptability. It's also primarily voluntary association.
Okay, all right.
Sort of like you can choose to join a commune, and by the same token, you can choose not to join a commune. You can choose to join Mattress Girl, and by the same token, you can choose not to join Mattress Girl.
It's gonna get noisy. Hold on.
No problem.
I just, I think that there are solutions to these that don't involve invoking statist ideas. I get where you're coming from. I just think that realistically, it's not an IP argument. It's a, how to deal with liars argument. And that's a separate issue altogether.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we already agree on this. I also understand, how things are, because sometimes if a person's reputation is ruined, even if they were like take my case that what I'm going through now, even if the case was dropped, it still shows up on my record, and because it shows up on record, I can't get certain jobs, I can't live in certain places.
Right, and that's awful.
Yeah, and the case was dropped. It was dropped by the state, not only for insufficient evidence, but it was just wrong from the get-go. But I still have to suffer for it. And that's kind of one of the ways I'm looking at it. It's like there's
so the other person should suffer. The one who fucked you over, they should suffer.
But I have no recourse.
You're right. In this society.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I was, in
an anarchic society, I would advocate total social ostracism of whoever fucked you over. And but in this society, I would be accused of discrimination.
Right, of course, especially because the accuser was a female.
Yeah, So
Well,
the
of course.
fundamental problem is what's fucked up about society by default, by de facto. It's not IP, you know. So
No,
I
no,
mean,
I'm just saying.
realistically speaking,
Like I've heard the libertarian debate on IP, and but it also goes to the whole idea: if I own something, I can give it away, or I could choose not to give it away. And
yeah, but
this is where the whole
once you give a file away, it's somebody
Yeah.
else's file, unless
No,
you had
this
an
is-
agreement associated with that.
I was trying to bring this up actually in a DM chat one time about you can only sell something once, because if you don't want it to get out there, then you better not tell anybody about it. But if you told somebody of like, here's my grandma's special recipe, or here's my special recipe of cookies, well, once you release it, it's gone.
Oh, I
and
make
so-
bomb cookies too.
Yeah, but it's like the idea of like with a woman, and this is the way, at least religiously, they used to talk about this, of especially in terms of sex, right? You're only like you're in a virgin state or an unvirgin state, you know. Don't sell yourself cheaply, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
and it's sort of like, it's sort of like that with any sort of idea. Once you transmit that idea, it's available, and you know, it's like that with data too, because ideas are data, and so is everything else if you break it down. That's why I'm a solipsist, honestly. But like beyond that, like, you know, if you transmit data, especially over a fiber optic or wireless connection, that data is extremely vulnerable. I mean, packet delivery systems can be manipulated really, really easily. So it's just a knowledge of whatever territory you're going into that that you should have before going in there. And if you choose to take a risk, well, you took a risk.
Yeah, and this kind of gets into some of the other like stuff I think about is, again, let's say it was stolen from you. Let's say let's go back to the.
Can I bring this example? This is 2 pair of headphones. Okay, I was going to say this. I was going to bring up the idea of like intellectual property and what is right or what is your right. Okay, these are 2 headphones. They look identical almost, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the original. This is the Chinese on the right. The right is the Chinese one. This one is made cheaper. It's made affordable to the public. This one's a little bit more expensive, but it's more premium. This kind of goes to the question of, let's say I create this headphone, this is my original idea, and somebody else knocked it down. Do you guys think it's okay for, like, say, knockoffs creators to create that same thing, but do it for cheaper?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're competing. Once you release it's like, I mean, okay, so there should only be one brand of car because VW shouldn't have been like competed with by Ford, and you know there should be only one brand of toothpaste because Colgate and Crest are fundamentally similar chemical compounds. No, fuck that. No, IP doesn't exist, yo.
Got it.
Well, like I can
Well,
see.
I think it's debatable. You could say when it comes to IP. Honestly, it depends on the person what they think is intellectual property.
Yeah, well, I think zero things are intellectual property. I think property is physical and, you know, transferable in a static way. If my creation of more of my thing does not create zeros in your thing, then there's no theft that occurred. If there was any breach, it was the breach of trespassing onto somebody's computer. But like realistically here, there's no breach at all. They just took an idea that existed and copied it. It's like, oh yeah, we should only have one type of everything because as soon as somebody thinks of it, it's theirs. Fuck that. No.
Well, no. Like,
that's
not my argument. My argument
no,
is more for
I was answering
the
his
liability
question.
of failure.
That's all.
Yeah, mine is more for the liability of failure. Because let's say, again, I bring up the prototype thing, but again, let's say somebody, and I even do the whole disclosure, like use this at your own risk kind of thing, and you agree to that, right?
Yeah.
But then if you hurt yourself, the way a lot of people would view it is, well, you know, you created something that damaged me.
Yeah, but they're wrong.
But on the other side too, if you don't somehow have some type of at least minimal protective kind of thing, I mean, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be the current IP, obviously not. But
so don't do that. Have some sort of protective sort of thing.
All right.
But here's the thing: you disincentivize people from doing things.
Why?
If somebody can immediately take it, Well, no, I mean, if somebody can immediately, I'm saying this was what I'm saying. It was brought up under the libertarian arguments for IP and not IP of, then what incentive does anybody have to create anything and put anything on the market in the first place? Because you're not going to recoup.
Make the best
Yeah, you're not
version
going
of
to
the
recoup.
Pete, yo.
Well, but you're not going to recoup what went into it. Now, my solution to this was
business ventures fail.
delayed timing.
Right.
No,
People who are truly
my-
passionate about a product or service should recognize the possibility that it'll fail and still go whole hog into it. That's the point of passion. If you truly care about it, you won't stop because somebody might copy it. That's weird.
Well, my solution was delayed release. So let's say I have
that'd be
Gen
fun.
1. Yeah, I mean, that's to me, that's the only way to kind of still be able to make money off of your design. Unless you just wanted to open source it, which some people are of that viewpoint. I think some of my designs I wouldn't want to open source because I'm okay with putting myself in danger, but I'm not okay with putting you in danger.
Well, you wouldn't be putting me in danger if I downloaded your idea, didn't check it for flaws in the CAD program, and fucked myself up. That seems weird too.
No, I'm saying let's say I was like my acceptability of risk is different than other people's acceptability of risk, and even though we could have the whole use this at your own risk, I as an individual creator can say at any point in time I don't want this released to the public for X, Y, and Z.
Okay, and in that regard, whoever agreed with you to not release it to the public has the ethical liability at that point, but that's a separate form of liability.
I didn't
deal with unethical people.
With anybody. I'm saying, like in my own mind, let's say I design something at my house and I scribble it all out and I go to build it, but I know it's a high risk thing. Let's say I don't want to use a gun, but let's say it's something, right?
A device, I don't know, something that it helps.
Some kind of device, right? Let's say. Right. Well, whatever. It's some kind of device, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that could potentially cause harm. But me as a creator, I know how to manipulate it. And again, I know that though it may be a finished work, I don't again. I'm taking it from the position of if I don't want to release it, I shouldn't have to release it. But at the same time, if somebody released it on my behalf.
So don't deal with those people, and those people should be held. How did they get it? That's a different question. I mean, we might be putting the cart before the horse here. How did they get the thing that you didn't want released to release it in the first place?
Well, here's kind of an example, and this also gets brought up a lot, especially with kind of regards to this. Let's say it's an unfinished work, but then I die, and it goes to my estate. Right, this is just among my other papers and everything else. Well, then one of my offspring or whatever relatives decides to go and do it.
Did you get your will and testament signed? Did you say what you wanted done with your estate? Because if not, then I mean, it's ultimately up for grabs.
Right, and I kind of That's what I'm saying. I can go both sides with this. I mean, this is not.
Well, I can understand both sides. I just won't go both sides. I'm very hardline when it comes to this sort of thing because
I think
people make ethical claims and they shouldn't.
I think you're more of a purist in some regards, which is great, and you're pretty puritanical in some ways.
I'm also more of an asshole.
Well, but I'm also surprised too now, because some of the positions you take, that sounds like the Christianity I grew up with.
Kind of ironic, isn't it?
Well, but again, this is why I said perfect.
Okay. So that actually brings up the last question I wanted to do. So let's wrap this point up.
Oh no, I'm done.
No?
Well, okay. Say your final piece, Jay. I'm gonna go grab an Uber Monster.
Oh no, I'm done. I was just kind of pointing out that to be a good Christian, you almost have to be a good atheist, and to be a good atheist, you have to be a good Christian. To me, they're becoming indistinguishable of each other. But I usually delve more into that kind of realm.
Well, and I like a lot of what comes with Christianity. I don't reject the whole thing just because I'm not one anymore. In fact, I act more Christian than a lot of Christians do. Like I like Matthew 7:4, I think it was. You know, hypocrite, thou art. Remove the plank from thine own eye before inspecting the speck in your brother's. You
Was
know,
it
shit
loud?
like that. And I'm very
Oh, that's
careful
me.
to still hold the ideas that made sense from Christianity, even though I don't identify as one anymore. Because I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, hey, all that shit that I thought was bullshit because there's no God. Because the social structure that religion's created is still pretty chill, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
in
well,
a lot of
that's
aspects, I
actually
just don't
Well,
like the sort of
we
hierarchy it is.
before we get into that, let me go ahead and list my question real quick. And of course, I mean, due to the conversation, I think we both know what the religion is, but I'm going to state the question full anyway. What religion do you believe in, and how does that play into your belief of anarchy? And for this purpose,
Oh, this is going to be fun.
yeah.
Hmm.
This is the hard hitting point that I wanted to do all night, and how this is going to
Hard-hitting.
progress. Yeah.
Do I get a
Because-
wrestler name?
You want that name? Take it. So how this is going to go is for the first 5 minutes for each person. Each person's going to get 5 minutes. They're going to describe what their religion is and how it plays into their belief of anarchy. Then after that, each person is going to get 2 to 3 minutes to refute what the other person said. For this purpose, we're going to go with Jay first because I know that, you know, he talks a lot about Christianity, and I'm interested to know, like, I'm interested in both, but I'm also interested in how he's going to word this.
Right.
So
And I have
Jay,
an aura monster, so I'm chill.
yeah. So Jay, you know, you've obviously came across as believing in Christianity. How does that play into your belief of anarchy?
Well, it gets into the whole control of self in all aspects, kind of like Jeremiah was bringing up about other things, but it also gets into the because I don't want you to do something to me, I'm not going to preemptively do it to you. And in a way, it's almost the nap, but just older. It's the same thing to me. I mean, I don't see a separation between, you know, what Jesus taught versus anarchy at all. I don't have they're one and the same to me. If that makes any sense.
They
now,
can be.
but I don't believe in religion. I can't stand religion. I'm openly hostile to
Organized religion, do you mean? Or do you mean religion at all? Because I would say that religion can be organized in the evil sense, but it's also like the kind of faith you have, I would say.
Well, what I mean by
doctrines.
religion, what I mean by religion, right, is
The church.
no, it's because it gets into the concept of letter of the law and spirit of the law, right? If I
Right.
know that I'm not supposed to do certain things, right, but I did by accident, should I get full weight and punishment? And this gets into the whole idea of transgressions versus out and out sin, right? There's a lot of literature on all that stuff, but also from the kind of the standpoint, the way I view it is to be kind of the ethical, moral person, you will be following certain rules. It's just those rules happen to be exactly what Jesus said. But he's not the only one who said them, though, which is
Gandhi,
most
Mithra.
Well, I was going to say Sun Tzu also talked about it too.
Right. But I was
yeah.
saying those things because those were the figures that basically had Jesus's life before the story changed.
And also remember, as we're doing this, I'm stopping the timer now. For the 5 minutes, we need to let the person talking just to be able to.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So I mean, you'll get the same due. We just need a little bit of yeah.
Yeah.
All right, continue, Jay.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, to me, I think to be a good anarchist, but again, I don't separate Christianity, anarchy, capitalism, or atheism. To me, that they're all trying to describe, they're just different facets of the same thing. They're trying to describe, it's like whenever you graph a three-dimensional object, and you're coming at it from different positions, they're all pointing to a certain behavioral ethic. I think in a lot of ways, not in all ways, but the behavioral ethic that Jesus put forth, right, is kind of almost the ideal. Now, that doesn't mean I'm capable of always fulfilling that, and that's kind of my position. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just
No,
wondering
I
if you're done, 'cause
remember I'm on the
you still
phone.
have another 3 minutes, so.
Oh, well, remember, I'm still on the phone, so I can't, when you guys go quiet, I don't know if the signal's about to drop.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, that's kind of the summation of my view. I mean, some of the, you know, that's kind of it. At least that's where my head is anyway, is, you know, perfect atheism is to have no other gods because you don't believe in other gods. Well, if you're having some other element control your life, that's a god. And to avoid having something else control your life, you have to control yourself in every aspect. Now, I understand that we all fail and fall short of that, you know. And I think the better way to deal with that is kind of forgiveness and kind of a mercy element. And I think it also depends on what it is that you did too. You know. But that's that. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I mean.
All right. I can see that. All right. So you're officially ending your point there?
Yeah, I can end it. I mean, I'm good.
Okay. Jeremiah, same question. What religion or lack thereof do you believe in?
I mean, I can go last if Octane Gamer wants to go. Unless are you not answering, Octane?
No, to be honest, I'm just not that educated into this, honestly, and it's kind of hard for me to process this. So,
It's
honest, yeah, I'm a pretty shy guy. I can't really answer this, really.
Right. So the question stands: what religion or lack thereof that you believe in, and how does it play into your belief of anarchy? Go.
Okay. Well, let me, because I don't have a very simple answer to this. Like, I'm not sure I'm real. Let me start with that. I'm a solipsist, and I could, like, there's a concept known as phantom limb syndrome, and well, a disorder, and it's where when you get a part of your body cut off, you can still sort of feel it sometimes. And when I really started thinking about that, and when I started to think about like the brain in the jar idea, where you could be a brain in a jar somewhere, and just experiencing all this life vicariously, I thought the brain in a jar thing was actually kind of, it fell short, because I could be a brain in a jar, sure, but that's really low tech shit. I could be a chip in a computer. I could be an ephemeral data set in an infinite universe. I don't actually know I'm real. And if you start from an assumption like that because you go full atheist, it sort of starts to sound like a religion, even though it's not one. So I start from the basis that I'm not sure I'm real. And from all of those bases, I have to accept the remote and distant possibility that everything I say is wrong. So I've sort of forced myself to be humble in a lot of these ways. And one of the ways that I realized that I needed to start being humble, when I started to slip more in this direction, is realizing that I shouldn't be controlling fucking anybody, because except in a voluntary context, because I'm not sure I'm real. I'm not sure anything that I say is 100% irrefutable, and as a result, I'm not sure that I could effectively control anybody against their consent better than they could control themselves. And so that, going along with the concept of self-ownership, means that while I may have my opinions on what's the best way to go, there's no way I should force somebody to adopt them, because in an infinite universe where I'm this little speck, me trying to manage like a molehill of a bunch of different people that aren't me just sounds like profound arrogance and hostility to reason and ethics. So I'm an anarchist because I could not be real, but I'm also an anarchist because even if I am, I don't, I own myself, And from that premise, from me owning myself, everybody else does as well. And in the same way that I shouldn't trespass on their property, I shouldn't trespass on their primary property, the property that they had before they had anything else. So in the form of my anarchy, basically, I try to go from a premise of humility, of understanding that I might not have it right, so I shouldn't force my way. And in that sort of way, I don't want to rule anybody else, because I don't want to become the sort of person that I walked away from when I started to believe in this sort of thing. I don't want to be the guy that I'm trying to fight and become my enemy. That's the general thing. And I'm way too angry to like it, primarily at myself, and then secondarily at the way that people run the world to change at this point. I don't think I could ever go back to statism, because I'm too atheist to believe in this fake god called government that nobody can point to, but everybody expects benevolence and resources to magically fall from.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I hate to say this, but you're not all the time, but again, we've kind of chatted about this before in other venues, but that, like, from the Christian anarchist point of view, government is as idol worship.
Oh yeah, it's a golden calf. Fuck government.
Yeah,
So I'm assuming
we
this
hate
is
it.
where we're getting into the refuting. So
I don't really have anything to refute. I mean,
there's nothing
have similar
to
thoughts.
on a debate stream. Shit.
Well, I mean, but we've had these talks before. I mean, I come more from a religious side of the house, but come to the same conclusions he does, and he comes from a non-religious side of the house. It's just what I'm saying. If like we were to be to grasp this, right, we're all pointing to a particular spot in I hate to say space time, but and we're all pointing to going, this is the right thing, this is the right thing, but we don't necessarily have the proper verbiage or proper identifier to say what that thing is, even though we're both pointing to it, and
right.
Just from different houses. Same stars, same moon,
one of
different
those
houses.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, you're saying, hey, fire is hot, and I'm saying, I don't have a good example right now. I'm thinking about it a lot from the terms of magnetic fields, right? You throw the iron filings on a piece of paper, and you put the magnet under it. They all align to show where the magnet is, but does each individual iron filing go, oh, well, that's my God or my religion or my ethical behavior? It doesn't have the vocabulary necessary or the means to vocalize that properly, I think.
And Jay, there's a question in chat for you, but I would love to answer this because
I can't see it though.
I'm actually now we're entering the phase of like questions from the audience. So I mean, first it's going to be directed at Jay, then if you want to answer it, Jeremiah, you can as well. So this is primarily directed towards Jay. How would you deal with Jesus' statement about taxes? And levy unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, levy unto God that which is God's.
Okay, well, this gets into the idea. Let's start with let's start with the beginning of the verse. When they held up the coin, he said, "Whose image is that?" Right? Mm-hmm. He's making the statement. I mean, even though it's like you're not supposed to have graven images, but it's like one of those. If his image is on it, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. It's a two-part thing, right? That this concept of he is the owner of that money, and so give him what's that. But it's also a calling for a spiritual kind of thing of saying, look, I'm going to forgive my brother, or I'm going to forgive his debts, or I'm going to help my brother out. I'm not, whether it costs me financially or not, I'm not tied to the money. And Caesar was all about the money, or all about the money/power. And that's pretty much what that verse is talking about. I mean, I have more onto it, but again, my brain's fried because I've been in the sun all day.
Are you sure that's not the drugs?
No, I can't do drugs, man. Like for real, because I'm watched by the feds, dude. Like
But you
even if I
can.
wanted
You're,
to.
you're physically capable.
Well, I'm physically capable, yeah, but I'm saying, well, actually,
Yeah,
I'm
I get
not.
it. I get it.
Yeah,
Wait,
actually, I'm
really?
not because last time I drank, it put me in such a bad PTSD state that
What, weed?
no, I'm saying alcohol and weed. I'm allergic, so like
Are you
I'm
okay?
kind
So are you allergic to the whole weed or just the fucking some compound in it?
I don't know. I haven't tried CBD. I mean, I know this is not related to what we're talking about, but like I have thought about CBD. I've had other vets talk to me about CBD. I'm really
Yeah.
interested in it, but I want somebody there in case I do it, and I go into my standard shock with weed that they could take me to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I'm a little
Well,
I'm a
or
little
just do
leery
it
of
in a
it.
hospital first,
Well, yeah, but we
like
don't
go to
really have.
Colorado or something.
Yeah, but that's me. So like it also goes back to right, like let's say something is a sin for me because of health issues or whatever. It might not be a sin for you, right? Like you might not have any problem eating meat that was sacrificed to an idol, right? This is the biblical story. But like if somebody has a problem with that, just don't do it in front of them. Don't tease them about it. And that's, you know, I don't know, like if anybody follows what I'm saying, but like
Yeah.
there's verses that talk about that of like, look, just if I'm at your house and you don't eat kosher, right, and I eat the food because I know it's just going to go in my body and it doesn't mean anything, but I'm not going to go then grab another friend who's trying to follow a certain thing and be like, this sure is good pork, you stupid, I'm not gonna.
Well, don't do
That's
things
kind
with
of a
spite. From the contents of the heart, the mouth speaks.
yeah, exactly. It's a spite move.
You see, I really was like my father wanted me to be the next Billy Graham, but whatever. Um,
Uh,
okay, so and there's two other things. Okay, so the verse started out with him saying whose face is on this coin, and that implies that if this is his, you should render it to him, right? But that
yeah.
also doesn't mean that you should consent to his society. It means that you should render it to him and try to divorce from that system which tries to claim ownership over you by a coin endorsed by the state. And if it doesn't mean that, it means the other opposite of that. The pro-taxation argument. It means that if you fucking and it's so really easy to understand this. If you accept the premise that God created everything and that the planet is God's, then that doesn't belong to Caesar, even if it has his fucking face on it. Like if I piss on your porch, I own your house. Fuck that. So
No, yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
And this
there's
is why
really no way but misinterpretation of the way that the philosophy of Christianity works to say that Christ was endorsing taxation. That's fucking dumb.
well, but also like in other places, this is why the local rabbinate, right? Even though that term didn't come into power, but people will know what I'm saying. The Pharisees and Sadducees. That's why they were so pissed off at the guys that Jesus was eating with the tax collector, because it was they list off the sinners that he ate with, and one of them is tax collectors, because Jews instinctively have always hated taxes. I mean that's because they come from classical Judaism is very capitalist in nature. Then it got mutated and ruined, but they view that people who will like lord over somebody and forcibly extract goods or services from them as the most vile thing on the planet. And Jesus took a more of like, look, you have to convince the guy that what he's doing is wrong, so then he can change his behavior. Just by out and out condemning him doesn't restore the man back to God. That's a kind of a stranger way to say that, but whatever. I hope everybody's following what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So another question. I actually want this read out loud on the stream. Jeremiah, what do you suppose we do about roads?
And I've already sort of told him in the fucking stream thing, or in the chat thing. So first off, my initial response to this guy, because he's been a jackass in the chat, was that you should demolish all of them because the roads are actually aliens. But in a more serious way, fucking, it's so blindingly stupid when people claim that the resource is currently monopolized by the state and the services currently monopolized by their state providers could not be done by anybody else. First off, there are fucking potholes everywhere. So many potholes that people make jokes about them. A dude ate cereal out of a fucking pothole in a goddamn government road not too long ago. So don't tell me that the government is the ultimate road paver. But like ultimately, we're dealing with possibilities here in an anarchist society that aren't acknowledged by people who claim there wouldn't be roads or other forms of infrastructure. And those people aren't thinking in an anarchic way, so they don't understand that. They don't understand that there could be privately owned roads, there could be communal roads, there could be mutualist roads, there could be, you know, no paved roads at all, like there aren't in Amish country. So there are many, many, many forms of roads that could take shape once we eliminated the corrosive and toxic bureaucracy of the state. But those things can't be done, and they can't even be attempted right now. Like Seattle anarchists are filling potholes because the fucking government won't do it. And they're doing it for fucking free. And those potholes are being dug up because the government doesn't like competition. And those people are being fucking arrested because they're trying to do what the government claims a monopoly over. So the idea that intellectual, dishonest people like this fucking bring up constantly, which is that without the government, who'd? Well, you or you don't fucking want it, do you, bud?
Well, there's a like I look at roads. I mean, I don't disagree with you. The way I look at roads, though, as I look at it like networks, I want to be able to travel to my neighbor's house. My neighbors want to travel to my house. So we come together and figure out what's the best way to do that. And sometimes the best way to do it is a waterway. Sometimes the best way to do that is a phone line. You know, if I want to be connected with others, we will find a way to connect with each other. But at the same time, if I don't want to connect with my neighbors, I'm not going to reach out my hand to make that connection. And a road is just a physical manifestation of that connection anyway, to me. Hello?
We're here. I'm just listening as moderator. So that gamer bird is a rather vocal in chat tonight, for which I'm thankful. So it says So the gamer bird says, I'm interested in a serious discussion. I'm just not sure I can take seriously someone who doesn't even know he exists.
Okay, well then he can take seriously or not seriously whoever he wants, but the answers that I've been giving for most of this, you know, discussion, because I can't really call it a debate much, but like most of this discussion, I've been giving answers that aren't predicated on a lack of existence. But when you ask me a personal question about my personal, you know, lack of religion to anarchy relationship, I gave you a personal answer. And I think that he's like not able to contrast those and remove the concepts in his own mind. It's really interesting that he's asking for a concrete mentality when he's not capable of forming one. That's fucking dumb, yo. Like I have no problem saying it.
Well, I don't really know what because I can't see, so I can't.
Right. I'll try to read the chat. I'll try to read the chat best I can.
But I mean, it's okay. I mean, this is kind of. And I know a lot of people, aggravates a lot of people because, you know, they vocalize this, but like on the whole Christianity thing, I'm much more of a spirit of the law kind of person than I am letter of the law, because if I'm just a strict letter of the law kind of guy, then fuck, I should be dead. But because I have a mercy element, that doesn't mean I always apply it, but because I have a mercy element and I want mercy, I'm going to show mercy. Again, that doesn't mean I always apply it, because sometimes I get fucking pissed off at stupid shit and I want to bash a motherfucker in the face. I don't. That mean I don't want to. No.
Yeah, and you know me. I have no criminal record, you know, assault or otherwise. The most I have is several speeding tickets. But at the same time, I'm probably one of the angriest people many people know. So it's all about restraint, you know.
No, yeah, and that's the thing. It's one of those like the person who accused me of being a terrorist and cost me lots of money, and that whole thing is still screwing my life. If I was the old me, right, they would be dead. And I have entertained that thought, and that's not a good thing to do.
Oh, entertain the thought. Otherwise,
well,
it'll
no,
fester,
well,
yo.
well, no, that's on a person like me. If I entertain the thought, I'll eventually act on the thought, which is why it's better for me to put that thought away.
Well,
You know
I've had
what I
murderous
mean?
fantasies
And
since I was 14, so I can't really speak to that.
well, but I'm saying it's one of those. To me, the whole anarchy, everything revolves around the heart, right? Just because I'm free to do something doesn't mean I should. And if I want, if I entertain certain things, this is why, like, by Orthodox Jews, now I think they get a little fanatical with this. If a pretty girl is walking by, they will purposely cover their eyes so that way they're not even tempted, right? And I think it can be pretty restrictive, but I understand where they're coming from. I get where they're coming from. I don't always agree, but I do see the logic in why they choose to do certain behaviors. But again, that doesn't mean I agree with them. You know, like I don't. If a woman wants to run around half naked, I don't give a shit. I'm more wrapped up in, you know, do I have a roof over my head? You know, kind of thing.
It's getting a little. Yeah, I'm here. It's getting a little heated in chat. Oh man, that gamer bird. If you like, I can go ahead and bring you into the hangout. I mean,
Yeah, that way he can ignore my points here too.
well,
But
no,
I don't take
maybe
you seriously.
right. I mean, I see a
What
lot
a
of
fucking
tension.
Stewie
Maybe,
answer to that. Like, I give like a personal answer to a personal question, and he's like, "Oh, well, I don't take you seriously because of what you think." Like, okay, but I think more than one thing, and the other things are based in things that we can discuss. So you don't have to agree with me 100% to find common ground. Like, fucking, what is this, grade school? Jesus.
well, the reply is, but anarchists aren't solving the problem. They're putting a patch over it and saying we can replace the government. They aren't doing their job. And then,
okay, let me respond to that. I disagree and I agree at the same time, right? And this is one of my criticisms. I don't remember I brought up the criticism like a couple of years ago whenever we were in that group chat about I think we should be more on a teacher mentor type of aspect of things. And preaching anarchy is great and all, but if I can't point to my own life and say, here's how I freed myself, this is why I've gotten off of, or for the most part, gotten off of open Twitter, because it's like trying to convince people that they need to be free. You know, they'll either want to be free or they don't. I want to be free, so I need to put my time and energy in making myself free, which is, you know, the shitty part is I've got to go through some bullshit to get to my freedom. And I understand that. That doesn't mean it doesn't suck, but I understand that, you know, and that's why I'm not even fooling with certain things anymore. It's just like, whatever. I'm working, I'm getting money, I'm paying off my debt, and when I have enough to leave the U.S., I will. And I've openly stated this to my family. I've openly stated this to Twitter. I've openly stated this to whoever will listen, because my intentions are very clear. Once I'm able to be removed from certain burdens, I'm gone. There's nothing, in a lot of ways, there's nothing for me here anymore. So I can't stay.
Well,
and the government thinks I'm a terrorist. So it's like, why if the government thinks I'm a terrorist, like I still am so pissed off that the DHS said that about vets. Whether you agree with vets or not, it's just the idea.
Well, Vigilant Eagle, yeah.
Huh?
Vigilant Eagle, yeah.
Who is that?
Oh, of Operation Vigilant Eagle watches you like you're a terrorist. You should look it up.
Oh, okay. Well, I was meaning when the DHS said all returning vets from the current wars are all terrorists.
Yeah, that's OVE.
It's one of those. Okay, it was one of those. Wow. Fuck you. You know, if I hadn't been pushed over the line to become an anarchist before, that would have done it. That would have done it. It's one of those. Fuck you. I did what you asked me to do, you know?
But you're practically a commie, dude, because you're a terrorist thug. You work for ISIS.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, but
I
know a lot. That hurt a lot of vets, even the vets who were like even slightly libertarian or conservative or pick whatever. That pissed off the veteran community big.
Yeah.
I took it to the point of like, okay, well, you feel that way, then we need a divorce. I'm out.
Right.
I will find a new lover or no lover at all, but you will not be it. And
Right. So soon we have that gamer bird hopping into
You mean limping into a phase shift of unexistence? Hey,
yeah.
welcome to the non-existence chat.
welcome to discussion of Anarchy Part 2.
But to address the whole thing about we're not doing anything, this is where I can't say the fucking word. What's the
Agorism.
word?
Test.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
this
can
is
hear
where
you.
that comes in. You know.
You do not have an STD.
You know, I
Sorry.
think that plays a major role. I mean, black and gray markets are a way we are changing things and providing goods and services.
Right, and if
Not-
anybody's ever interested in learning about agorism specifically, just check out the New Libertarian Manifesto by Samuel Edward Konkin III.
So I'm interested in that gamer bird's point of view now that.
Oh, but he's
finally
speaking
opening
to
up.
somebody who doesn't exist, so he can't
Right?
he can't speak to that.
Yeah, exactly. Like speaking into the void, and that's something I certainly wouldn't know about anything. Sorry,
Do
that's
I
an
have to echo that back to you? Like,
maybe. No, sorry. That's a joke. It doesn't have to be. It's a Homestuck joke. I'm a Homestuck. Kill me. Anyway.
I don't know
Let's see.
what that means. What is? I
it's
don't
a
recognize.
fandom. He likes Tumblr.
Homestuck is a webcomic, and I don't like Tumblr. I'm on it, but Tumblr is.
Oh, we got a defector.
No, not a. Okay, so here's my. Let me tell my point of view on Tumblr. Right, I think Tumblr is honestly and oddly the last bastion of free speech on the internet because they don't censor anyone. They literally do not go in and censor anyone. And
Go to
that's
HN.
why. HN? What's HN?
8chan is like 4chan, but you can make your own board with your own rules.
See, okay, so that's cool. It's also like Reddit, but less fucking shitty. But
I didn't know about HN.
But
well, it's because I was a dirty Gamergate support. Well, I still am a dirty Gamergate supporter, and I watched the Gamergate boards on there for a bit.
See, look at this. Me and the non-existent man are already finding things in common. What up?
Right? Yeah,
What up,
see, no,
dog?
you just have to agree
See,
that
all-
a
all
hole in the
it-
ground is worse than a badly patched pothole.
All it takes is a little bit of praise, Doug.
Oh, no.
I collect
see,
Chaos
like
Emeralds. I have all the energy I need. And an Uber
fucking-
monster.
text is hard to communicate over because you can be very abrasive over text and not mean to be.
Yeah, that's
Well,
why I
and
wanted to
I'm
bring
just
you
an
in, too.
asshole in general. Like that's one of the reasons I don't want rulers, because I don't want to rule other people because I know how bad I can be. So I mean,
Well, and I think that's a good point there, but that's also a flawed point to the extent that it's you shouldn't be willing to base your worldview entirely upon yourself because
I'm not.
just because you don't feel like you're capable or you wouldn't be able to rule over people, that doesn't mean there aren't people out there who are
was one
not
of my
benevolent enough, you know?
that was one of my reasons.
Yeah.
Well, see, but I don't think anybody is capable because no one can weigh. Okay, I know I'm a religious nut, but like I don't think any human is capable of weighing out both the motives and intent.
You mean making
or-
risk assessments for everybody?
Right. Well, I mean, even beyond that, it's like let's say I shot a man, right? If I go by the letter of the law, is I killed a man.
Hey,
Well,
be
but then
careful,
you find
terrorist!
out-
You might be accused of more.
Yeah, but then you found out like the reason why I killed this man is because he raped my daughter. Then that changes the perspective, you know? I mean, yeah, legally I still did kill a man, but was it justified?
Are
But
you
yes.
identifying?
Well, yeah,
terrorists?
and we have. I mean, we have systems in which we're capable of categorizing. We, as in the sociological system that has formed underneath the guidance of our government.
Okay, so not birds.
The system, both the individuals and the system of morals and ethics we have evolved as a community underneath a nation.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, maybe. I think we evolved on our own, and the nation's been evolving above us. Like, honestly, that's the way I think it is, because most people don't make their decisions. Hold on. Most people don't make their decisions based on what's legal or illegal. Most people make their decisions based on what they believe to be beneficial in the moment. It's a concept called human action and spontaneous order. Are you familiar with those?
Well, yes, but that doesn't mean that those decisions don't correlate with what is legal.
I didn't say they didn't correlate. I said they didn't causate.
Well, that's fine. You know, it doesn't have to causate. It just that as long as there's overlap, that's important.
Okay, yeah, but the overlap is something that could overlap with any number of other systems, and those systems are what I'm trying to get afoot. So,
well, I mean, like, yeah, all right. I think it's just more. I think it's less important to decide. Oh, I don't think any system can possibly.
I didn't say any system. I was talking about archons.
Well, I mean, you're as an anarchist, you're opposed to systems
archons.
of.
That's all.
Archons. Okay, explain the term archon as you're using it, because when I think archon, I think StarCraft.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't make the word, so
I know.
Anarchos was the original the original way that the word was made. The roots of the words are anarchos, and archos used to be government rulers, essentially people who were at the head because the power monopoly de jure said that they should be, rather than because of the consent of the individuals or because the system formed organically. They weren't leaders based on desire, they were leaders based on fiat, and that's what anarchists oppose. That's the reason I talked about hierarchies earlier as not the sort of arch we oppose. We don't oppose the St. Louis arch either. We just oppose the sorts of archonic structures that have created the rulership class that we have now and throughout history. So, I mean, we oppose archons and archonic structures. We don't oppose anything with the word arch in it or anything that resembles it.
So a more accurate term would be a more accurate term is to say that you are not a fan of absolute rulers, but you're not necessarily opposed to the idea of governance.
Leaders, not rulers. Rulers are people who make arbitrary rules. Leaders are people who people follow.
See,
so let me interject here, because the way that I would picture it is a ruler is someone who tells someone what to do, right?
Well, I mean, you can tell somebody what to do if you're the boss in the company and you're not a ruler.
Right. But a leader helps that team or the congregation along doing the same work beside them.
They can. I mean, it depends on how the structure is set up. Go ahead, Jay.
But see, this is where I brought up the concept, at least in at least the way I view it, right? Is more of a mentorship kind of thing, right? I want to learn a particular skill, right? So I'm going to go to someone who's a master at that skill. Now, I might not agree with the way, their sexual preference or their color of their hair, or their tattoo, or what the fuck ever. I'm there just to
they collect Chaos Emeralds.
Okay. I don't even know what that is, but
I was making a Sonic the Hedgehog joke.
I'm there purely out of a selfish reason to learn a particular skill. Now, this is because I view kind of education as super important. Now, I don't always view like a classroom kind of education as the correct model. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
You like practical education.
Yeah,
you like also, hands-on and shit.
I'm also a male, so most males typically we have to touch things and break things and go, I see why it works. Well, yeah, I am a sexist. I will admit it. I think women are better at certain things and men are better at certain things, and sometimes we're both going to be good at shit.
Well, I wouldn't consider that sexist
that was a joke. We've known each other for long enough to know that.
Well, yeah,
because you're talking to somebody who's an anti-feminist on Nazi block lists, even though I'm an anarchist, So, I mean, whatever,
I think it all goes back to and by purest definition of the word socialism, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all enter various. Let me not use the word socialism. We all enter various states in our lives, and we will continue to do this through our entire lives. Of sometimes you're a teacher, and sometimes you're a student, and sometimes you're neither. and these are varying states that we flow in between. So, if I was a purist in the word of socialism, then I would say all school is socialism. But I also understand that, like, if I'm wanting to learn something, I have to follow rules and this framework. I'm not opposed to those frameworks voluntarily, right? Now, it's very different, again, if I kidnap you and stick you in my basement. I don't have a basement, but if I stick you in my basement and I'm going to make you be my worker, that's a totally different thing. And that's why I can't stand the communists, because the communists do that in a capitalist kind of system with total self-ownership. I could say, look, I could teach you this skill, or you can not learn this skill, or you can go your own way.
But that starts to get into copyright infringement right there, because that song is amazing, but we can't use it.
I
was making a song about the "You Can Go Your Own Way" song. Fucking
I just have to do this as like a little joke, because I always do this. In a world where no one gives a shit, one man decides to stomp out the potholes.
Yeah,
I think,
and there's the thing, though. I would rather have a filled pothole that needs to be dug up and refilled than a hole that's going to damage my car. So effectively, what the state is saying is that these potholes that we've been leaving for a really long time, don't tend to them.
No, it's really retarded, and I do agree that that's fucking retarded as shit. And the thing is, right, I don't disagree with the act of filling in the potholes with loose asphalt and basically making a very faulty solution for an even faultier problem.
Well, a patch.
Because that patch is inevitably going to draw attention from the government, and they're going to say, "Oh, we can't just leave that patch there. That's just going to ruin the foundation even further. We got to tear up the whole thing, and we got to fucking fill in the whole fucking anarchists."
Wouldn't it have been cheaper to just do it in the first place then, huh?
Exactly.
But this gets into the concept, like, I didn't bring it up, and I haven't really vocalized this, but this gets into almost a Romanesque version of permanence. You do something right, and you do it once. Yeah, it might be high cost, but you do it the one time, and you do it correctly, and then you never have to really fool with it. It just takes light maintenance.
I'm reticent to use that as a model, because I don't know that the Roman roads would hold up to cars that well.
They hold up tanks.
Yeah. Fucking of course
regularly.
They hold up tanks.
The way that I would look at it is like sort of like a Peter Griffin style, right? Peter Griffin is the government. It's like, hey, what do we got here? Someone trying to do my job better than me?
I really hate that idea of that character, though. Just gonna go on a 20-second tangent here. Fuck anybody who makes a character that is just a dumb, stupid, fat male, because that's just it really confirms the whole idea that no matter what men do, we will not get a break. Realistically, the women always have to be the smart ones, making all the smart decisions and talking about the men, talking down to them. And then we don't get a good society, because everybody's fundamentally pissing on the people who could defend it from tyrants. Fuck that. It's disempowering as fuck.
By the way, if you heard that cracking noise, that was me cracking my knuckles, because I could talk for hours.
Yeah, I am sympathetic to some MGTOW views, because I just am. I'm a father who doesn't get to see his kids. The state forcibly extracts my goods and services, despite the fact that, like, what, I don't even get into all that bullshit. But it also then gets into the I'm sympathetic, but I don't have, like, a lot of MGTOW, not all, hashtag not all, a lot of MGTOW just openly hate women, and I don't hate women.
Are you sure? You are a robot.
You don't have to hate women to improve yourself. When you're stuck in that, what they call red pill rage, it's more of a detriment to yourself, and you have no room to improve because you're stuck in that mental state.
Well, and that's
Well-
why I just talk about what I'm not rather than what I am, because what I am is somebody who wants to see many possible different systems compete, and you can't have that if you just state your grounds immediately. So, if I'm going to talk about this particular issue, I'm not a MGTOW, I'm an anti-feminist, and we'll start from there if you want to talk even.
Oh, well, I mean, I look at it as, I look at it, I go back to what I was saying earlier, man. Like, I think women, at least the women that I've encountered, right? Because I haven't met every woman. Some women are incredibly good at certain things. Do I think they should be denied opportunity just because it's not typically their gender role? No. But at the same time, I also am fully aware, and I'm gonna use a statist view on this, unfortunately. But in the military, the lightest member of the team has to be able to pick up the heaviest member of the team.
Yep.
And it's very much about physicality. Now, can some women do it? Yeah. Can some men not do it? Yeah. But on average,
Well, and here's a non-statist way to look at it, man. I don't see a huge rush for gender equality in the coal mining industry,
or an oil field,
or Alaskan crab fishermen.
Yeah.
Or computer engineering.
Well, there is. You just you got quotas there instead of actual interest.
Well, but I mean,
and
like
that's why I have all the business, and they don't.
But this is kind of gets into the whole like Martin Luther talked about, like when Martin Luther got hooked up with his wife, right? This is way back in the day, of course. On the surface, she was a very domineering woman, right? In a lot of ways, but in the surface, she was his foil, and so it prevented him from being such a fucking jerk off. This is kind of a very simple way to put it, but sometimes a submissive male needs a dominant woman, and their relationship could be fine. Other times it's vice versa, and then other times it's an even split. So I know some women who are great at doing bookkeeping, but I know some women who are just like, as soon as I get some money, I got to fucking spend it. And it's just like, well, then we won't have a roof on our head. You fucking dingbat.
I hate it.
So I think it has to do with personal choices and personal responsibilities. And a lot of the stuff we're seeing to include centralized banks and governments are a direct reflection of our
lack of that.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Delegation of responsibility and relegation of the people to subservient roles to a master class that can't even master its own shit, much less anybody else's.
Right, which is why I don't bash the bankers like a lot of anarchists do, because it's like, well, you're the one who went to them for a fucking loan.
I bash them. I bash them solid. I like the Dope Stars Incorporated song "Shoot the Banksters" because it's fucking great. It highlights how like all of these people have built this, because there's the fundamental shit right there. All these people have built this industry on fundamentally owning people, and I'm not gonna like sit back and say like that's isolate. And when I talk about the bankers, I'm not talking about the intern who just got hired at the bank. I'm talking about like the people at the top of the system who have created a usurious system of debt to control us all. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and this is one of those like usury is also one of those contention points I think between you and me too, because and again, I take it also from a very religious point of view. If I own something, right? Like the way the Jews look at money is the same way they look at like corn and seeds, right? You're just renting my good or service, so I can charge at a particular rate. But if you look in the actual Bible, in the Torah, it doesn't necessarily give a fixed amount, but it gives an amount in relation to the time of it would be used. And every 7 years, it's supposed to like auto default, or every 49 years, it's supposed to auto default. You know what I mean? That's how they accounted for this.
Here's the problem.
The problem is we don't do it that way.
Well, and okay, we don't do it that way. That's part of the problem. But like the secondary part of the problem is the way that we quote actually, because I don't do anything, but we quote actually do it, which is the U.S. government has a loan swap on zero value accounts, and it creates debt as soon as money's created. So it's no surprise that they would swap this debt around and try to use it to chain us all. That's what I don't like. I don't like the banking elite. I don't care about the person who runs the fucking bank down the street that gives you a Pyrex dish if you sign up. I care about the people in control of the whole thing, the real bank.
Yeah, I mean, but this is why I'm saying, like, a lot of people,
the system is based on literally less than nothing, and based on controlling future children and getting everybody involved in a system that they didn't consent to. That's what I care about.
right? And see, and then a lot of problems, like when people say they're against centralized bankers or against banking, they'll default to banking in general, and
yeah,
and I don't think that's
who runs the trust.
Huh? What?
It's not Phil down the street that runs the trust that's the problem.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not the guy. Like, if I borrowed $5 from you and say, you know, I could either pay you the flat even $5, or I could be like, okay, but when you pay me back, give me like an extra $2.
Yeah.
You know, it's a voluntary system. Now, what you're talking about is kind of different. What I'm talking about, because again, I come from a pretty religious side of the house when it comes to this. It's like, I understand. It is very much seeds, right? Because I could be using those seeds to do my own thing, but I'm going to let you have some of my seeds. And so the interest part is what I would have made if I would have done it myself. But again, biblically, there's a fucking time limit. It's not in perpetuity.
Well,
and the current banking system is in perpetuity.
Well, right, but let me be clear though, that if I get into a consensual arrangement with you to give you interest on a loan, that's different from the consensual relationship that bankers do behind closed doors, and that's different than the dollars, which have fundamentally less than zero value intentionally so that they can control people. We didn't.
No, absolutely.
System,
yeah.
And
no, look, I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, you just have to be very careful, though.
Yeah.
When you talk about banking, because a lot of people will go, well, that's all banks, and that's all, you know, and unfortunately,
well, it is all banks, but it's also all stores and all everything, because we have a centralized currency economy. Like, so we need to change that.
I didn't mean it that way. I was taking it from the argument of, and this is why, because a lot of Jews are in banking, right? And this is where it's a slippery slope to go, well, all the fucking Jews and blah blah, and it's just like, no,
and
they're not the ones.
That.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm trying to make the distinction of, like, look, you know, your neighbor could be your bank, you know, or like for example, if your neighbor like you got in a car wreck and you didn't have the funds to fix your car, and your neighbor loaned you the money. It's just out of respect that I pay him back, and then pay him back a little more, because, you know, who knows what he could have used that for. But that's a very different banking type system than what we have now. What we have now
is usurious.
Well, no,
to chain us to the economy.
Well, I wouldn't know, because this is the problem with that word, right? Because when the Catholics instituted this fucking word, they did it in a very direct purpose to slight any interest, and they did it as an attack against Jews, actually. And so, actual usury, I don't have a problem with. What we call usury, I have a problem.
Well, yeah, but no, what I'm talking about is the fact that if the currency is fundamentally less than zero value, then it's fundamentally usurious to have any interest on it at all. It's unreasonably high if it's one on zero.
Yeah.
So that's the way I was using the word.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. But I'm saying most people don't know the origin of that word, because
right.
Yeah, and this is where it gets bothersome me as a religious person, right?
Yeah.
When I say, well, no, if I have something and I'm letting you use it, rent it out, right?
It's your terms, even if you don't like them.
Right, and they have to be consensual. Otherwise, you don't get to borrow my saw if you don't agree to my terms. Now, I could be a total dick and be like, you're going to pay me $50 billion, and I could tell you to eat a fat one. Or you could be like, look, just, you know, put more gas in the car when you're done, and, you know, and leave it at that. It all goes to the human heart part. You know what I mean? Again, you know, if I'm in that situation, am I going to be an asshole?
Right.
If I know you, I'm not going to be an asshole. In fact, well,
unless you know me and you know why you want to be an asshole.
well, but if I know that you haven't developed that trust with me, that I know that you're going to like pay me back, like if you're actually going to pay me back, then I'm
Yeah.
going to be less leery. And
Yeah.
so I would increase the interest. And again, the Bible talks about that too. Now, again, modern Judaism is very different than classical Judaism because they went fucking apeshit fanatical in rabbinical Judaism with that. And I don't like that. That fucking pisses me off. So
Neither do most Jews. The Jews that like that are the ones in power. They're all basically the
Jews are like
Pharisees
that.
of the Jew world.
Yeah, they're the Pharisees, and it upsets me from the standpoint of, it's like if I say, oh, I'm an atheist, but then you're out molesting fucking children, you give everybody else who ever associates with being an atheist, everybody thinks that all atheists are child molesters. You know what I mean? And that pisses me off because it's like, you stupid bastards. You're the reason why we got killed because and the other fact is you're not even reading the original documents. You're reading the oral Torah, and that fucks me. Yeah. I'll stop because otherwise I'll fucking go ballistic.
Yeah, I was gonna say we lose you, Gamer Bird.
Oh, we crossed into territories of things that I'm not too familiar with.
Hey, we crossed into territory.
Wait.
I was making.
Pretty soon I'm gonna have to head out because I gotta go. Remember, I lose my apartment tomorrow, so.
Oh shit! Shit! Whoa! What the fuck? What happened, man?
Oh yeah, you're new to the. Okay, yeah, you're new to the party. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got accused of a crime, two crimes.
Oh fuck!
Right. One they dropped, and the second crime was a catch-all. It's like, oh, we can't get you for DUI or bank robbery, so we're gonna get you for a busted taillight. Well, that shit still shows up on my record, even though it was years ago. So because of that, there's new owners of the apartment, and I'm not being able to renew my lease. Well, because the VA controls where I live, now I'm kind of assed out. So that's why I was late, because I was trying to get a fucking hotel room. And I got to be out by tomorrow. So, well, I got to be out by the 31st, but I'll be at work. So it's one of those, I'm just going to, pack up my shit. And it's one of those, this is why I'm very, in particular, I understand very much why certain religions do not just openly accept the word of a woman, and they require witnesses. But in the state that I live in, you only need one person to be the witness to a crime to convict a person, even if that person, the witness, is the accuser. And that shocked me, and it really pissed me off. And it got one guy kicked off my jury because he was like, "No, there should be at least more than one, because then anybody could say anything." Yep, he was gone. He was off the jury. And I was like, wow, you guys, there was no way I was going to win this. But that's why I kind of have to kind of go, because it's like, I'm pretty fucked. And I mean, I'll make it through, but it's like, it cost me a potential job. It cost me my place to live. And it's just how many times do I have to be punished? I've already paid my fine. I've already done probation. I don't do certain things. All I do is work and sleep, but I'm forever going to be punished because of this, because it will never come off my record.
Because of lies.
Yeah, because of a lie. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. I'm very sympathetic to MGTOW viewpoints because men get fucked. At the same time, it's like I not a total disregard of law at all. Like if you rape somebody, now I take a very biblical point of view on that, but if you steal something from me, you need to pay it back, and possibly with interest, because you stole from me, and my rep is fucked because a woman lied. And what makes it worse too is she wasn't even close enough to hear what was said. If you listen to her report, she just made up all kinds of fucking bullshit. And it's like, what the fuck? Are you serious? And when the witness got called in front of the court, which I'm super surprised nobody brought this up, the witness who was sitting right next to me contradicted everything she said. On that grounds alone, you should have let me go, because if the premise is that I said certain things, and the witness who was sitting like within 2 feet of me said, no, he didn't say any of that, you know, you really should have let me go. But instead, you know, you want to take my licenses and do various things. Okay, well then, fuck you. I have no reason to stay anymore. I'm done. Sorry, I know nobody needed to hear all that, but like, I'm just done.
Well, with all that being said, Jay, I still love you like a fat kid loves cake.
Oh, well, thanks. I love you too. I mean, you know, no homo, you know.
No, definitely all the homo, the robo homo.
All of the homo.
Oh, and with somebody who made, like, I think it was Jeremiah made the comment about being robotic. I have full intention on replacing a good chunk of my body with robotic parts. So I'm also a anarcho-transhumanist kind of person too. So
Yeah, anarcho-transhumanism is that we can transcend the need for the state by modifying ourselves. It's kind of cool.
yeah. Now that comes into clash with some of my religious views, but it's one of those. I want my fucking arms to work properly. So
are you sure?
Yeah. Well, you know, having them fucking not work is kind of enough. But it does make me sympathetic to the trainees, even though it's like I guess, bro. I mean, it's your life. If you want to cut off your balls and knock yourself out, I think it's weird, but so is smoking, and I do that, so I can't.
Cut off just they cut off their balls to spite their face, huh?
Yeah. So, but I'm gonna finish. Like, you know, I'm fucking pretty stressed.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I can't. I really, truly can't wait to get out of this town and eventually get out of this country. I mean,
well, once I start my, you know, self-sufficient commune, you'll be more than happy. You'll be more than happy. Welcome to be there.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I still keep thinking about my boat design. I think that is a quite possible thing that if people want to hear about, we can talk about at some point in time. But I think it's a viable option to certain things.
Seasteading.
Yeah, it's setting, but this is from an engineering point of view, not necessarily from an anarchist point of view.
Well, I mean both. If you really look at it, the state is antithetical to engineering because they want to centralize the idea for designs of the way everything works, much less the way certain machinations work. So I mean,
wow.
Well, this is.
I'm sorry, I missed some of that. Can you repeat some of that?
The state is antithetical to engineering and science because they want to centralize the way everything works, much less the way that like certain machinations work. Like,
I don't necessarily think that's true.
Well, then tell me why there are regulations preventing people from building pretty much whatever they want.
For the safety of the individual and the people.
There you go. See, so they're not there for science. They're there to preserve people under the guise of.
Okay. Let's not presume that they're doing it under the guise of anything.
Why?
Because that's a bad faith argument, and I don't believe in making bad faith arguments. The state
nukes people.
Let's assume for a second that the state does things because they genuinely are trying to because they're genuinely trying to better the lives of their citizens and increase living conditions for this way and that.
Okay, so, for the sake of argument, I will assume what is demonstrably untrue. Let's do this hypothetical.
Right, because before we can have a bad faith argument, it's important to have a good faith one. To exhaust all means, because so
honestly, what it's like, I don't want to interrupt you, man. What it's sounding like, to be completely square with you here, is that we need to have our own debate on these sorts of topics because Jay just had to leave. So what I'm wondering is if you want to do this sort of debate, starting from the good faith when we have more time and energy to do so, like maybe.
I'd be more than ready to host that.
Maybe we don't. I mean, we don't necessarily have to. Okay, so
because you want to exhaust all options. Yeah.
I need an example of something that the government says, "Hey, don't do this scientifically for reasons that you disagree with." For example, something that you think is
stem cell research.
Stem cell research. Well, that's not necessarily the government saying don't do that.
There are laws against much of it in many places.
That's something that that's something that the public votes on, though. That's not something that the government
doing it.
But the government doesn't.
No, okay. First off, most citizens don't vote for the prevailing opinion. Most citizens vote yay or nay on like basically a minority position compared to the non-voters. Most citizens don't even vote in like the presidential elections, much less local elections. So let's not treat it as though the citizens are making these decisions. Governments get to make decisions, and then citizens can agree with them or not, and are encouraged to debate about it. But reasonably speaking, most citizens don't have a say, and if they did vote one way or the other, everything is manipulable, yo. And the government does tell people not to do things, even if they claim to be acting in the will of civilians. And that makes them unscientific because they're doing it based on mob mentality and not science. Science is objective. The mob is not.
Okay, but like, I know that there was a point at which stem cell research was actively being done by the government, and now it's not.
Funded by the government, not done by the government, no.
What difference is very small, in my opinion, whether something is funded, because if they're funding something, they're directly putting their hand in and saying, yeah, do this, we got to do this,
okay, let me be really specific, because like I'm sort of being generous when I say that the government is doing anything at all, because we got into this argument in the chat here. We got into this argument already, and I'd like to get that settled out. Point to the fucking government, yo.
The government, the series of the series of systems.
That's a concept. Point to it.
Well, okay, I can point to the various organs which consist of the various people and organs.
Claim it.
I can point to the various organs of a superorganism, even if I cannot point directly to an organism.
If you treat it that way, if you're not individualist, sure, I am. I fundamentally disagree with you there. People are people, and they're specific. And if you claim that you're a part of an organism, it doesn't make it true. That's like, okay, so if I believe in I'm assuming, I'm not going to like put any words in your mouth, but I'm assuming we're both atheists, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so by that token, you aren't an atheist because there are organs that support God.
No.
Then you can't point to government just because.
Okay, I had a little bit of difficulty understanding that. What?
That's inflationary, because the organs that quote support God, end quote, by the word of a Christian are the same organs, in my opinion, that support the non-existence of a God. And in the case of something that conceptually exists, you cannot have in the case of something that conceptually exists, you won't have the same evidence for both points.
I thought you liked good faith arguments. Now you're arguing that people are simply wrong.
Well, that has nothing to do with good faith. Okay.
It does. You're not assuming that your opponent's position is correct or done from a point of benevolence. So if we talk about God, we're talking about an amorphous concept that people support and therefore create, and it's the same thing you're talking about when you talk about government.
I don't have to preconceive that my opponent might be right just because I think that they're doing it from a place of good heart. That's good faith doesn't entail that you have to concede that your opponent is correct. All it means is that you acknowledge that there's a good chance, or maybe even a demonstrable chance, that the person you're arguing against is saying the things or trying to do the things that they're doing for the benefit of others.
Okay, so there are two halves to a good faith argument.
Right.
There's the half where you think your opponent is acting in good faith, and then there's you acting in good faith and not sabotaging their argument from the outset.
Right. So let me gain some clarification, because I hear the term good faith and bad faith.
Well, I just clarified on my own, so there you go.
Right. Well, I mean, I require further clarification.
Okay, well, there's two halves to a good faith argument. The first half is that your opponent is acting in good faith, and then there's you acting in good faith. So you have to treat their argument as though it's whole unless you can demonstrate a whole. And throwing it out because God doesn't exist isn't an argument against this particular precept. This particular precept is that if an organ exists to support the existence of something, that thing exists. So therefore God exists because his acolytes have provided enough organs that these sorts of structures have this sort of following.
But that's not what I said.
Then point to government.
I didn't
government
say that,
is unfalsifiable, yo. It's bad science.
Okay, hold on. I didn't say that I didn't say from the offset that God just doesn't exist. I may be an atheist.
Same.
But I am agnostic. I am an atheist because
well, you're an atheist though. You don't believe.
I am an atheist because I do not see the evidence for God. But however, that's because I've seen the evidence that people have pointed to for God and just said, but that can be explained through science.
Okay, yeah, and the lack of existence of government can be explained through empirical data. It's just people claiming a label.
That doesn't... Okay. You're going to have to really... you're going to have to break this one down like a motherfucking... like it's motherfucking rocket science here. And
government is simply a concept and not an entity. You can't say government is doing something. You can say that the concept of government is responsible for X, Y, and Z, but fundamentally people aren't doing things because they're government. People are doing things because they have their own motives for it. People are doing things because they believe government is benevolent or they don't believe government is benevolent. They're not doing things because government is an actual extant entity that you can point to. They're doing things because of their own personal motives.
Okay, well, can I say, from a personal standpoint, I make no conception about whether or not government is doing something for the sake of good or not. I think that government as an entity or as an ideal...
No, which one?
Either one doesn't fucking matter. As it operates,
it doesn't operate if it's not not an entity. It doesn't operate in the same sense that an ideal would, that a concept would.
I'm gonna need a cigarette for this.
Okay, regardless of how it operates or doesn't operate, I believe that government has a job to do.
People who call themselves government, maybe.
And as long as it does that job without infringing upon the freedoms of individuals to a point where we don't have freedoms, I think that it is beneficial to have.
I think that those things could be provided without government, because government doesn't exist and people fundamentally act in their own interest regardless of what government says.
Well, I mean, you might be right, but like, okay, so...
Well, regardless, sorry, I meant to say regardless of what people who insinuate that they have government authority say.
Yeah. No, so let me point to, I mean, a really good visual demonstration of how I think anarchy actually ends up working and how government may be important is if you played Fallout 4.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Here's our resort to a simulation based on statist ideals. Go ahead.
Okay, so good neighbor.
Hey, I like video games.
Yes, and I recognize that, but I'm saying that if you want to prove something, maybe Fallout isn't the best idea if you're trying to argue in good faith. Well, it's just starting from a statist premise.
It's not the worst either, but let's run the simulation of Fallout.exe and say let's look at Good Neighbor. Good Neighbor is a good place. It's people there look out for each other. They have a community. It's all close knit, and on the surface, even deeper within the ideologies, Good Neighbor is more or less an anarchy. They have a leader, but they don't have a god, as it were. They don't have an absolute dictator.
Fallout 4? Sorry.
Yeah, Fallout 4.
I have not played Fallout 4. I've only played 3 in New Vegas.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a video game then for you. Here's an anarchist video game. You have external threats. you have people banding together to deal with those external threats and banding together to collect resources and build things for the good of their community. You know what that game is called? Minecraft.
And
Okay.
just about every other survival game.
Yep.
So
unless, of course, you're doing it to joke, which people probably wouldn't do if their lives were actually on the line. Like, I've seen the bro team streams for Rust, and those are funny as fuck, but that's not actually how it would go.
That is funny. I actually plan on getting a Rust server, so that's kind of ironic that you brought that up.
Then we can be boys of lust too.
But
Oh,
here's the thing, right? Why I feel it's more important to have so I'm going to continue with the Fallout 4 thing because you don't really there's good
it's
neighbor,
using existing concepts, so I'll probably be able to pick it up anyway and also destroy it because I'm an asshole.
Isn't Good Town the one that has the ghoul as the leader?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I can break it down for him.
Yeah. So Good Neighbor, it's a great place. All the people look out for each other. They have a functioning economy of some sort. There's a little bit of capitalism going on there. So they're not full communist, but they're definitely an anarchy. And so here's the thing, right?
Let me explain the concept on how the town started to him.
Okay.
So you have the main city. I already forget its name already.
Diamond City.
So the thing is, they don't just accept everyone. So the people that are rejected, they actually started to form their own little commune, which is
Good Neighbor.
Good Neighbor. So with that being said, they teamed up to build that community, and in that concept created the town by themselves just by that concept, and then the materialistic things started building up around them. You know, when they started rebuilding or remodeling, and then it's more of a commune status, while Diamond City is more, I risk to say, government-like.
Not necessarily. I don't think that. See, Diamond City doesn't operate as a government. It simply is a larger commune, a commune with a different set of values from Good Neighbor. Now, here's the thing, right? Diamond City and Diamond City and Good Neighbor differ on some key components, like their ideologies, or maybe the things that they think, or even things that they do. Maybe people in Good Neighbor like to shoot up a little too much jet, while the people over in Diamond City feel like drugs are a bad way to go. Who knows? Well, it's just there's some differences going on, right? Because these are two anarchistic societies. Although Good Neighbor, we do have to admit that Diamond City has itself modeled less after an anarchy and more after your normal city, because they have a mayor, and the mayor, they do. I think they have. We're not really told much, but I think they have democratic ballots and shit. But it's kind of lopsided because the mayor kind of just exists and gets to lead the town by default. So I'm not so sure about that. But either way, they're two relatively anarchistic communities because they are independent of one another. So let's say you're a level fucking 40 survivor who walks into Good Neighbor and you stab a fucker, right? Well, immediately everyone in that area, everyone in the fucking town sees you and says, "Hey, fuck you!" And everyone turns and shoots you all at once. You're fucking dead.
Sure.
That's
dead.
That's the benefit of the community. But so they're powerful enough to ward away some threat. But say you're a level 80 fucking wasteland whisperer who has 3 Deathclaw companions, 2 Gator Claws, a fucking Yaoguai, and 14 mutant hounds because you somehow learned how to speak.
I'm just going to stop you right there because that just gave me the biggest muffler of them all.
The biggest muffler?
Yeah. I'm a semi-truck muffler.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I love the Beastmaster mod. It's so fun. But say you walk into fucking Good Neighbor with these fucking huge ass beasts, or an army if you prefer, and you say, "Hey, I hate Good Neighbor, and I'm gonna kill you all." Well, now Good Neighbor is at a loss because they are down on, like, they don't have enough people to fight back against your invading force.
But
Who's
State Farm literally has insurance.
Who's going to help Good Neighbor at that point? Because their nearest neighbors, Diamond City, don't like them and are not going to give out the resources or the manpower to help fight off an invading force.
Better question is why they wouldn't. Because essentially, you're talking about an invading force willing to take down entire societies. What incentive does that neighboring society have to let that neighboring force carry on the way they have been?
Diamond City is bigger and has more military power than Good Neighbor does. So Diamond City doesn't see this invading force coming into Good Neighbor as a threat because they're
really fucking dumb, dumber than U.S. Which thinks that this tiny little country called North Korea shouldn't have nuclear bombs. Like, this is really insular and unrealistic. Why would they not do that?
Because, again, the invading force just isn't a threat to them, and they don't like Good Neighbor.
Well, then, okay, why are they not a threat to the people next to them when they have clearly no ethical structure and no desire to form reasonable, like, compacts with communities?
Well,
if we're talking about an invading force that's going to look for societies to take advantage of, yeah, maybe they might leave you alone for now, but it'd be an exceedingly poor decision to make, to claim that they wouldn't be like invading you later. Like, to me, this goes back to like fundamental humanity. And if we're talking about structures, we're talking about structures based on what humans want. Humans generally don't want a roving band of thugs. There would probably be vigilantes after these people. Like, maybe, hey, you want to talk from a Fallout perspective, the guy that you play as. Because that's like part of the problem of using video games and analogies, is that they always put you in a position to personally handle the bad situation. But like,
if we assume,
they have all these open-ended societies where generally things are run in a way that you could handle. So let's be more realistic here.
I get what you're saying, but let's not assume then that it was a fucking player character, because player characters are also OP. Let's assume instead it was raiders. And that's something that that Diamond City just wouldn't have an interest in pursuing or defending against if they don't like Good Neighbor. If Good Neighbor gets taken out by a bunch of raiders, oh well,
maybe we're all player characters and we all have the capability to do what player character does, and realistically using a game that's designed to have problems that are easy for people to solve isn't really that great.
Right.
From that perspective, I'm going to talk about Sonic and the fact that, basically you got many different types who do many different sorts of things for many sorts of different effects, and they usually beat Robotnik pretty well.
Well, but what I'm getting at here is why would if Diamond City don't like Good Neighbor, why would they try to expend the resources to defend some place that they don't like? That's it's flawed, but that's human. That's something that we as humans end up doing. This is a cycle that actually happens in reality.
And somebody in chat is actually talking about that cycle, and I could talk about that cycle too. Let me bring this person's comments up here. They said, let me find the place to start. They started talking about how good faith arguments are never really like effective, and I said I agree, because effectively I'm a cynical pessimist, and I think that realistically when you start from a good faith position, it's a good way to get taken advantage of, and he agrees with that, this guy in the chat. And he also says that even if you smash the state, things will return to the status quo. So instead of breaking it, it's better to reform it and build it up and make it better. And I would disagree with that, because I want to see, I'm sort of scientifically minded in there, I want to see how long anarchy could last. I want to see how many of these systems could compete with one another. And realistically speaking, the only way to do that is to give it a shot. And I know that there's a
Oh,
possibility,
I'll give it a shot, all right.
and I know that there's a possibility that this could reset to 0, and I know that there's a certainty that on a long enough timeline it will reset to 0. On a long enough timeline, the planet's probably going to get destroyed, and all this shit that we tried to accomplish will vanish in a puff of smoke unless humans can find a way to break the currently known laws of physics and find a different place to live. But like realistically speaking, I'm not gonna avoid trying, because we could end up like Good Neighbor in a hypothetical situation from a video game context that's designed to have inherent instability that the player character becomes Superman by solving. I mean,
Well, that's the thing, is there's never a solution for
there are solutions.
No.
They're just not one person.
I'm elaborating in Fallout 4. There isn't a solution for the scuffle between Diamond City and Good Neighbor, because Diamond City just will not accept ghouls into their city, and Good Neighbor doesn't like that idea.
I should make like a fan fiction mod where I like have the entire thing solved and have everybody find a way to get along, or you blow up both cities in nuclear fire and the whole game is over.
But in contrast, though, I need to finish my analogy, because the conflict between Diamond City and Good Neighbors it's just there to demonstrate that it's possible that two communities that coexist may not rush to each other's defense because they don't wish to get involved, or they don't want to expend the resources defending each other. And
I'd argue that wouldn't be the norm, though.
That's a human flaw, and you might be right. It might not be the norm, but it's definitely a possibility that you'll end up with
in
these
a really dumb
conflicts.
Society with really dumb leaders. Yeah, that's a possibility. Where you can't band together to solve common problems with common enemies. I mean, if that's the case, definitely never listen to Paul Krugman, who says that an alien attack would bring us together. Or at this point, Prince E. Fuck Prince E while I'm at it. Fuck you, okay. Prince E, if you're listening.
Let's assume that the invading force, though. Okay, now that you've made that point, I do agree. But let's assume that the invading force that's killing Good Neighbor doesn't have the same squabble with Diamond City. Maybe they don't want to kill Diamond City. Maybe they're aligned in some way.
For now, let's trust the mob. That's fucking fantastic.
When relating to video games, I have a whole different point of view. like if I referred life to a video game, like as a video game, I'm not too fond of it, to be honest. Not fond of the characters. The respawn time sucks ass. Shitty physics engine. Everyone was arguing whether or not there was an admin. The soundtrack was good until the 90s update. Resources were hard to find, PvP wasn't allowed, the controls were confusing, and the tutorial lasted 18 years.
Hey, and how dare you, though, because, like, I mean, the soundtrack didn't suck during the 90s. It just didn't get...
I knew that would get a rise out of you.
It just didn't, like, it didn't keep improving as much as it otherwise could have. Because, like, we got 9 Inch Nails' Broken album in the 90s. That's fucking fantastic. We got Static X.
Well, remember, it's 90s, so it could end at 99.
Okay, yeah. So we had a dark period of, like, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, huh?
Yeah, the very dark period.
But at the same time, there were... see, that's the thing. I mean, you just didn't get the right patch, yo.
Well, someone could have directed me in the right way, to the right point. Maybe I would have had the right patch, but
to finish,
you need better friends, bucko.
Finally, put a cap on my stupid, retarded Fallout 4 analogy.
I didn't say it was stupid and retarded. I said that the people in it were stupid and retarded for not having each other's backs.
Let's think of it as the concept instead.
That's true, but also people don't have each other's backs in reality, so it seems realistic to me. But
people have each other's backs. They just need to have the right flag over it.
To finally fucking tie it together, as opposed to the anarchy of Diamond City and Good Neighbor, you have the Minutemen. And the Minutemen, while it's fucking annoying, and while they only seem to have one enforcer who goes around to every settlement helping everyone, they still as an entity, have a system where if one settlement if one Minuteman settlement is struggling, they send people from another Minuteman settlement to help out. And this is more or less the concept that government that government is supposed to function under, in that
Your preferred type of government, certainly not Chinese.
well, certainly not all the governments that we have functioning currently, but the idea is that you have a series of different places with maybe even slightly different ideologies, but they all are united under a banner, and they all understand that they need to look out for each other. And so they send help to each other back and forth, trying to create a net or a shell that protects each other and themselves from outside invaders, such as raiders, or this one random ass motherfucker who just decided that he was going to tame a bunch of fucking death claws. You know, that's what government is supposed to be on function. It's supposed to be.
You mean on paper, in people's heads, because it's not fucking real.
Well, and
ultimately, you can't counter human nature by hiring humans.
Well, I mean, to an extent, the idea that we have that's functioning as government does this job, but it also has this issue where it likes to impose other things, and this ends up not being necessarily because of this flawed idea of government that's just deciding things. It's because the people who operate it are like, not only is it the higher ups, but you've also got the majority vote in democratic solutions that decide certain things that are just not beneficial. It really sucks that, you know, we could have fucking stem cell science, and it could possibly cure cancer. Anything could fucking cure cancer.
Weed cures cancer. 420 blaze it.
I mean, you know, ideally, you could fucking do sciences that cure cancer in the long run, but we're not allowed to because the Christians disagree with it morally, and they don't want to pay into a government that helps that pushes this along.
Man, dude, you're blaming the Christians when the government is the one doing it.
Oh, okay, so
the Christians aren't going to come burn down your stem cell research facility. The government is going to raid it and steal your shit. It's not the people's consent that operates the government. It's their lack of consent and their lack of involvement in running their own lives that allows the lie, the myth of government and God to manifest.
Okay, so final points.
Final Fantasy
is awesome.
Well, some of them were hallway generators.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've started a stream series of Final Fantasy 12, so
just wait until you get to 7.
Colonel, I've managed to avoid drowning. Good work.
Good work.
Hey, Quad in chat, do you want me to tell that to the actual buildings or the people in them? I'm being a shithead, but you know the fact is that Christians, you know, they can act like governments, but mostly they don't. That's why you don't hear about a firebombing of an abortion clinic every week, because there are like tons of those, and most of them go unscathed.
But Christians are. I mean, here it's Christians, and fucking anywhere else it's Muslims. But it seems like religious people.
Oh no! The Muslim world is pretty big, but it's not the rest of the world, other than quote. Here.
No. I'm generalizing it. You have to hear what I'm trying to say.
Here,
listen, hold on. I'm autistic, so I don't word things properly.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is, it seems like religious people of an Abrahamic stint or lean seem to be very keen on enforcing their own moral values on everyone who isn't them.
Sounds like government to me.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, possibly. In some cases, yes. In other cases, maybe not.
All in all, I think this is actually a pretty good discussion.
Yeah, I could, well, and you can tell I could go on for like hours. I'm
Yeah.
not.
I could tell, considering
My-
this one is like more than 2 hours long. Actually, it's getting near to like 3, and
See,
it's almost 45 minutes.
You might scoff at me when I say I'm a liberalist.
I don't
But
scoff at that as long as you're actually what you claim to be and want people to decide what they do with themselves. Classical liberalism is great, but what classical liberalism also says, which is what liberalists claim, what classical liberalism actually says is that, hey, I'm not going to decide that if you want to form an anarchist society, I'm going to stop you. The government that we currently have fucking would. Garen goddamn it, and every time somebody's tried to start anything similar, they've been shut down and violently assaulted.
Well, yeah.
So reasonably speaking, as a liberalist, you at the very least have to oppose this government for what it would do to somebody like me for doing something peaceful along with peaceful property owners.
You know what? You want to know what I think? You want to know how I feel that we should handle the insurgents of anarchists and communists and anarcho-communists and fucking white national, all these people. You want to know how I feel that this should all go down?
Why do I feel like this is a pistol sideways shot?
I
thought we were talking about Fortnite.
I think that we should set aside an area of like I think we should incentivize people from an area to move out of that area, and then ascertain this large, or maybe ascertain is wrong. We should attain this large mass of land, right? Maybe in Oregon or Wyoming. Maybe we put it in fucking Tennessee. Who fucking cares? It's got to be somewhere that can sustain life. And we take a section of this land, we give it to the white nationalists, and then right next door we put all of the anarchists and the anarcho-communists, and just let the free market settle things, because we'll find out
when embargoes start happening and tariffs and shit and all this interference between market transactions that people could actually do, and except when those things start to spread out, because realistically when you isolate things for these sorts of experiments, they can't fundamentally take root and get people ideologically interested in maintaining them. So I mean, I understand and appreciate what you're saying, man. I just think that what we need is a fundamental shift of consciousness before, quote, we do anything, because otherwise we will eventually fail. That's my bend. I'm a pessimist. I'm a cynic.
Yeah, well, I'm also kind of an asshole in that I'm not invested in the success of either the anarcho-communists or the Nazis. I think it would be a success no matter what happens. It would be a success if we put this governmentless area just for the anarcho-communists and they all end up starving to death because they can't get enough bread. That would be a success. But it would also be a success.
I know a lot of anarcho-communists with really good ways of approaching that. So,
but I think it would also be a success if the white nationalists ended up, with their own little plot of land. They had their ethno-state, and then nobody anywhere wanted to do any business with them because they're a bunch of racists, and so that they end up starving because they can't get any food or something or resources from outside. They'd still have
the assumption that they don't have any skills to utilize for self-sufficiency.
No, I know.
And we're also operating under the premise that these people would be isolationists and wouldn't try to form webs with people and try to bring them in to expand the territory, because basically this sort of thing would be attractive to people and these sorts of territories would grow, which means that effectively it needs to start on an ideological level, and it can't just do this. I mean, I'm
just saying in my
has to start somewhere, and it's not that.
No, I'm just saying
if it's going to be real.
Well, all I'm saying is that we should be able to allow them to have their things without destroying what is the entire infrastructure for our government. Just let them have what they want, on their own. And in my ideal situation,
is that they own themselves.
In my ideal situation, everyone's happy, but I would not cry if everyone who decided that they didn't like government just ended up starving, because communism does things, man. Socialism too.
I don't think you recognize that there are many forms of anarchy, and not all of them are quote communism.
Oh no, I know. I'm fully aware. One of my friends was a fucking anarcho-capitalist, and she'll fucking McNuke your ass if you violate her NAP. So
Okay.
of course that's an ANCAP joke.
Yes.
Oh, when it comes to this subject, there's a reason I'm the moderator. It's because I don't know shit about the subject.
Well, hey, now you do, and you heard it from an insane person first.
Me? Am I insane?
Oh no, I've been talking about this with him like for several days now, and I got on a stream with fucking Chairview, and we started getting on this subject. So I agreed to do this stream today, and effectively, you know, my whole like online persona is insanity is free, which you know was an ill-advised username I picked when I was in high school. So, I mean, there. My primary point is this: people should own themselves, and people should recognize that they own themselves. That's the fundamental step in the right direction. Until that happens, we will not have anything better than what we have now, and it will keep getting progressively fucking worse.
No, yeah, and yeah, man, I believe in the sovereignty of the individual. I'm an ethnic Kekistani, and that's what I feel like.
Except
No,
when
you're
the government
supposed to praise
says
Doug.
something different.
What?
You're supposed to praise Doug.
Praise. What did you say, Jur?
I said, well, unless the government says something different, then you got to obey that.
Well, to an see, I don't have to agree with everything the government does or says in order to also still be for the idea of governance and the government.
They would disagree.
They would disagree, but I certainly don't. I don't like that. I don't like that the government. I don't like some of the limitations that the government puts on people because some of the limitations.
Then maybe you should support what's good and eschew the concept of government in favor of a decentralized approach to the same things.
No, I disagree.
Why?
Because I think that would lead to chaos and perhaps murder.
Why?
Because first off, the only reason I am not dead is because government exists.
Oh, the only reason, yeah.
Paradoxically, if government didn't exist, I would actually be allowed to leave my house. Alien birds don't get along well in public, man.
Okay, well, neither does a Chaos Emerald collector, but you see how I'm getting along with you here, at least, you know, when we're on these sides of the screen. Realistically speaking, government is a blind monopoly on force, and that is all it is. And it only exists in concept because fundamentally, you don't have a physical government. The only thing you have is people claiming that they have the authority and right and privilege to do things that you cannot legally do. So that is all government is. It's a pack of lies and deceit to try and get you to sacrifice your own fundamental freedoms. And I hope you see the light someday, man.
Well, at this point, all I can say is that I disagree. I don't see the evidence for that.
Okay.
So I'm as skeptical of that idea as I am of God.
Okay, so that's a good ending point right there.
Praise Kek.
No, praise Doug.
Praise both.
No, Doug took down Kekistan.
Did he?
Yeah.
I don't believe anyone took down Kekistan, but okay, maybe I'm just behind on the times. What happened? Explain to me what happened.
So Doug is a character that helped me out actually in my run through of Soma. That's when I first experienced his presence, and then little by little he showed me himself in every single video game as the robot that helps out everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, Kekistan were just doing their troll thing, and then all of a sudden Doug is like, "Wait a minute, what? No." And so just by sheer will alone, almost all conversation stopped at a central point in time. I think it took about 3 days for that whole subject to be dropped. Yeah. And see, the thing is, Kekistan is more about trolling and having fun with other people. Thing is, Doug helps everyone.
Well, no, Kekistan's more about taking the piss out of identity politics.
Prez, I just collect Chaos Emeralds. I'm on my own.
I apologize. I am the most oppressed human. I am the most oppressed biological being on this planet. I am one of a kind, a bird. And if I ever leave my house, I will be abducted and taken to be bisected and dissected and whatnot by the government. So I have every reason to dislike the government, and yet I don't.
You also have a Jew beak, so I'm kind of suspicious.
Okay.
Oy vey.
All right. All right. This is going into like slap happy mode now. So
It is. Oh man, I
is.
thought it was so
Yeah.
orderly. I thought anarchists were orderly. Shit, I'm fucking this up.
Hey, look, for the most part, I was able to keep up. Okay.
My entire
But now I'm too fast.
my entire existence aligns with the motives of Kekistan. So ideas are bulletproof. Kekistan lives. Praise Kek.
Yeah, well, I collect Chaos Emeralds. I'm gonna go super on your Wes's.
Okay, so with that being said, we may actually continue this discussion because I get a feeling it's from over. But
and hey, sub to my.
Well, you'll get a chance to chill your shit, and I actually took a look at that Gamer Bird's channel too. I know he has something to chill. So thank you to everyone that actually came in and started discussing Anarchy. Thank you to everyone that basically came to the stream to watch and just chat. I am Optimus Christ. Because Jesus can't turn into a truck. So with that being said, you already know my channel. You're on it. You're watching my stream. These two fuckers are going to show their shit. Go for it.
You can go first.
No, you go. Of course, you first.
I always go last because I have like a fucking weird way to say things. So.
Oh, well, shit. Fuck. Well, I guess you got me. Hi. Well, I'm a fucking bird. I'm a piece of shit bird who landed on planet. Now I'm playing video games, I guess. I don't know how to explain myself. You like video games? You hate commies? Maybe you've been really apprehensive about Homestuck, but you think that maybe it might be a good thing if you just gave it a chance, but you've never had that push to go at it. Well, I'm your guy. Yeah, you can go to my Teflon X5 over at The Gamer Bird because apparently Teflon X5 just wasn't a good branding. Who the fuck's gonna remember that? All right, how do yeah? Now you're go do it. Go,
Jeremiah.
So I make videos, and I also collect Chaos Emeralds, and I'm like trying to uproot society and make everything terrible. So if y'all want to see me gradually crush how everything is, and talk with a bunch of people who agree with my evil terribility and my wanting of grandmas and puppies to die and roads to be demolished and the entire society to be torn up by its very seams, you can check out my shit. I do weekly streams on Sunday and Wednesdays from 6 to 9 p. Eastern time. And I also do, now that I've set up the schedule for this, I'm going to do a news stream on my DLive channel, which is related to the Steemit blockchain, which is an entirely new posting system. And it's designed to reward content creators like
Ollie?
you. What?
Can I be Ollie on your news stream? It's gonna rain.
Well,
rain!
I mean, you could, but I might have to turn down your mic. But either way, like I try to bring as many different perspectives to what I do as possible. If I remember correctly, Sunday works for Optimus to come on and discuss the military-industrial complex with a bunch of other vets I know. And I try to get people talking because I'm an anarcho-coalitionist and I want to build the coalition for the future, and I want to make sure that as many different types of ideas can compete as long as they're anti-statist and, you know, pro self-ownership. So if you want to subscribe to my shit, I've got my fucking bullshit in the description probably, and y'all can also find me at Insanity is Free, or just Google Jeremiah Harding. I'm the most popular Jeremiah Harding on Google apparently, so you can just Google that and you'll find me as the top results, and you can hear from the crazy anarchist conspiracy theorist who might not even exist and collects Chaos Emeralds every fucking week.
And there you have it. And you know me, I do video games. This is kind of the first time actually hosting a discussion / debate, so I'm kind of liking it.
Wait, I thought this was part 2. There should have been a part 1.
Yeah, there is a part 1, but that's because it was due to my stupidity that the bitrate was all messed up because Steam decided to update stuff.
Okay. And hey, let's argue tomorrow, Gamerbird. How does tomorrow work?
Rip. I don't know.
Rip.
I think after this, I'm late to start a stream anyway for myself. I was gonna play Fallout VR because
really,
yeah, yeah. So I was gonna do that, but
well, let's find another time to argue and really hash this shit out, because I have to prove to you that I exist, even though I might not.
Do you have a Discord? Shit,
I got a Discord. Hold on.
Yeah, I have one of those too. I'll link it to you in his Discord. It's Disception Cord Eption Conniption.
Conniption.
Yeah. So here's that. And by the way, this Friday is the trivia contest, trivia competition, and anyone's allowed to enter, and the winner gets whatever game they want, no price cap.
Oh shit.
And it'll be video game trivia. So
there you go.
Yeah.
For my fucking thing.
And so if you guys like free shit,
your anarchist ass is welcome in the birdcage.
Well, there's me right there. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, this is a good discussion / debate. Most likely, if you two don't mind, I'll host the next one as well and see where we can go in that direction. Who knows? It might just turn out to be like Screeching.
Yeah, well, you know, as long as I get to cross post, like I said, I'm totally cool with anything, and like, because I'm trying to get people together, and going on other people's streams lets their subscribers see what I think, and maybe see if they want to sample some of my weed cookies. So, you know, it's always a good idea to try and reach out, and that's what I want to do to as many different people as possible. So. And by the way, follow me on Twitter, Gamerbird. You can. I'll put my fucking thing in the chat here.
Roger that.
Yep, and you already have my Twitter, but
yeah, because that's the primary place I do my shit. I've got 15.8 thousand followers over there, so I try to like talk there as much as possible because it's my biggest outlet.
Hey, go you.
Oh. Help a robot out, damn.
I will tweet some anti-government shit. I'll retweet you.
Chirp, chirp, motherfucker.
Oh, chirp, chirp. Well, the Gamerbird has more subscribers than I do, so I'm kind of like.
I've been at but how long have you been at it? I actually have to ask.
Realistically, including the on and off.
Yeah,
7 years.
Holy fuck, man! Same. I started just before Markiplier did. I was doing the same shit as he did, but I didn't take off, and so I gave up for like a year, and then it's just sporadic.
I think I gave up for like 2 years, maybe 2.5, because I just got so disheartened. I was like, well, I mean, this is stuff I enjoy. I shouldn't be getting down about it. But then again, it's like when I ask for feedback, even if it's negative. You know, got nothing. And I'm like, oh, well, apparently my opinion doesn't fucking matter. And then I just kind of went from there.
No, I've been really down about my own channel not getting traction for a long time, but oddly enough, and this is going to sound preachy or some shit, but when I started actually reading fucking Homestuck and I finished it, that was when I started getting the motivation to think, you know, maybe it isn't so bad, and maybe I just need to take what I've been given and what is bleh, excuse me. Maybe I just need to take what I've been given and take my place in life and turn it around on itself, you know?
Well, you want some preachy bullshit there then. Be like a Sonic character. Use your talents the way you have them and defeat Robotnik.
No. Here's the preachy stuff. When the universe gives you shit, you turn the universe around and fuck it in its asshole.
Okay, I'll clarify a little bit what I mean. Homestuck has this... Okay, so you know how you have astrology, which is prescriptive? It's prescriptive personality determination.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Homestuck has a descriptive system that takes who you are and how you act and finds a way to describe what you are and how it's been affecting you in your life. To an extent, that doesn't actually translate into reality, but at the same time, there is a way to make it translate into reality because it holds a lot of the fundamental things of astrology. And right now I'm currently working on a series of videos while I'm just streaming in the off time or in my off time. I'm working on a series of videos to try and explain how the descriptive system may actually be very good and very accurate at describing you know, like your behavior and how it affects you and how it affects your life. So say I'm a void player by the logic of Homestuck. But what that means is descriptive of me is the concept of irrelevance. And you can see it no matter how much effort I've pushed into my YouTube channel, my Twitch channel, just how much dedication and time I put into it. It just seems like I never get the comeback. I never get the attention. I'm irrelevant. It just happens. But I know that because there are structures within the system to turn that around and use your aspect constructively. And so that's something that I want to do for myself, and at the same time create a system that is descriptive of the descriptive system to help other people, you know, lift themselves up and make themselves better and whatnot. You know, just some really retarded autistic shit.
Well, I mean that, and realistically, that's what I want to do too, is like, you know, help others as well. But in order for me to do that, I need to be in a position to be able to, you know.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know, most, if not all of it's my fault. I'll admit that, because, you know, with my job, it requires a lot. It demands a lot out of me. And so when I come home and I'm just too tired to even play a video game, much less record it and then cut it and splice it or do a stream, you know, that's going to affect it as well. Then all of a sudden it's like I'm doing the best I can, but it's not good enough. Yeah. And then I have to remember, hey, I'm not a special snowflake. I really don't matter. The universe has been continuing and will continue to shit on me. I have to roll with the punches.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it's really weird that it took a fucking left-leaning liberal, really left-leaning webcomic made by a shit poster to kind of make me realize that myself. It's just like, wow, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But the first in the series of videos that I'm going to do, and I'm doing a lot of research and talking with people, trying to in my Discord, I've been trying to theorize with people, and get feedback. But basically, I'm gonna try and prove that Kekistan is the real world equivalent to basically the Juggalo troll cult that exists within Homestuck, to create an anchor between the real world and this fictional world to build the rest of my ideas on. And it's honestly, it's staggering just how similar in concept the Juggalo cult and Kekistan are by nature.
I just got one thing to say to that.
Uh-huh.
My axe is my buddy. With that
Anyway.
being said, I think this is where we're going to end the stream for tonight. Thanks everyone that came out. You two say bye to the two people watching.
Bye.
Later.
Later. Yeah, hasta la vista, asshole.